Wow, season 7. That was a fast year. We had a great time here on the podcast. These are my favorite moments. Y'all check it out.
You know, I almost forgot to introduce your co-host.
Oh, we do. We have a new co-host for the show, thanks to my man Eric. Dropped him off. Gave him a ride. I wonder if he got some looks going down the interstate with that. We turn over here, introducing my man, Straight George.
At Christmas time, somebody dropped off a life-size cutout
of George Strait. You know, that had always been kind of a running joke. I would say we were doing stuff at the shop, and George Strait's going to be here, and we just kind of ran with it. And he showed up. He sure did.
Took 4 seasons, but he's
Where do you think this came from? I don't see like it hyping Wrangler or anything like that. One of his big brands.
I think his wife.
It works in like some kind of promotion where they did it.
Yeah.
It's cool. Hey, who else do you know has got a George Strait life-size cutout? He's co-hosting the show. He's pretty quiet, but he's got some good songs out there if y'all ever want to check out some of his tunes. I guess it's on iTunes. So.
I want to talk about your gumbo.
Okay.
That is the best gumbo I've ever had.
I can make a pot of gumbo. I don't know what a championship level gumbo tastes like. I've never had one that I know of, but I think this one would give a gumbo contest a run for its money.
You said that you ate your bowl of gumbo, and you said, "I think I could win a gumbo contest."
I normally don't say that when I cook. Eat my own stuff, but that was pretty good. It wasn't pretty good. It was really good.
But you worked kind of in stages because you made your roux one day.
I made my roux the day ahead.
And how long did it take you to make the roux?
It's a bit of 30, 45 minutes. Constant stirring the way I do it.
Do you think letting your roux like sit overnight is beneficial at all?
I don't think it makes that. I don't think it makes any difference.
Okay. It doesn't like
whether you make
the flavors or anything.
No, I don't think so. Once it's roux, it's roux. I mean, once you've taken it to that stage, the only thing with making a roux is if you burn it, if you get it too hot and it scorches, you might as well throw it out and start over because there's no coming back, and your gumbo will taste like that scorched roux. And there's a fine line between getting it dark enough to where I want it and then not burning it.
I agree.
And so I take it through all the stages, from blonde to red to peanut butter to dark. I'll go all the way. And I mean, mine's pretty dark. But I think it gives the gumbo a better flavor. I mean, some people say, you don't want to, you want to use a lighter roux if you're making this gumbo, or darker roux for this one. I usually, I make a roux the same way when I make mine. So it's a pretty dark roux. What Emerald say, it's a 3 or 4 berry roux.
Yeah.
That's for a light drinker. 12-pack roux.
You don't do no 12-pack roux.
But you stand there at the stove and keep it on low, and that's my trick to it. I usually use a pretty good bottom pot. I keep my heat on about medium low on my stove. That's about number 2, 3 right in there. And I add me a cup of oil and a cup of flour, and I just get to stirring and keep it moving.
And that's it.
That's it. I use
all
a
you're
wooden
doing
spoon
is cooking the flour.
That's all you're doing. It's cooking that flour and that oil until it, it'll thicken up on you a little bit, and it'll start going through its color changes, and you'll smell the nuttiness come out. And,
but if you ever,
it makes your whole kitchen smell good making a roux. And you don't season it, you don't do anything to it. And then I usually take it off the heat and let it sit in the pan a little bit. Make sure I stir it every once in a while while it's cooling down. Then I'll put it in a jar. And you don't have, even if you don't use all of it, like usually I use a cup and a cup, and I use the whole thing in my pot of gumbo. But if you're making if you want to make more, roux will keep. So you can make your roux ahead of time and put it in a jar and stick it in the refrigerator or whatever, and use it for other dishes too.
And then when you decide it's time to make gumbo, put that roux in a pot. What happens?
So my process is, this one was a chicken and sausage gumbo that I made.
And you had shrimp in there.
I supplement it because I always throw some in at the end because I like shrimp. But it's not a seafood gumbo. It's a chicken and sausage gumbo. So I start with country pleasing andouille sausage. I cut them, usually take those links and split them in half long ways, and then come back and half those. So it's these little half moons. And I brown up my sausage in my pot first. And so once I get my sausage, it kind of, you start getting some of that gris in the bottom of it, that stuff that sticks to it. You want to leave that in there. Once I get my sausage rendered down, get it browned up, I get it over in paper towel and let it kind of hang out on the side, cooling off. And I take chicken thighs. And I usually cut them I use the boneless, skinless thighs. I'll cut them into chunks, usually kind of quarters, or how depending on how big that piece.
Like a bite?
Yeah, bite-sized pieces, but I don't get real small with it because it's going to cook down. So if I take one, I'll half it and then half it again. And usually that's 4 good chunks, little nuggets. I'll season those with a little king crawl, throw them in that sausage grease. If it needs a little more, most time it doesn't need any more oil, but you can always add a little bit more olive oil or cooking oil or something. But I brown up my chicken. I'm not trying to cook the chicken through. I'm just trying to get it browned up all the way on the outside. So it usually takes, 5 to 7 minutes. I'll turn it every once in a while. Keep it, let it cook good on one side, flip them all over, let them cook good on that other side and see what they look like. Once I get it brown good, I'll take it off and put it on paper towel and put it to the side. Then comes my vegetables. I leave all that in the pot now. Now, it depends on how much grease is in there. You don't want a bunch of grease, but you're going to need a couple tablespoons anyway. Onions, bell pepper, celery, the Trinity, plus the pope. But the pope don't go in until
what's the pope?
The garlic.
Okay.
So they say the cloves of garlic look like the Pope's nose or something. I don't know. That's what they call it, the Pope, plus the Pope. So the Trinity goes in, and that's what deglazes your pot. Once you put that onion and those vegetables in there and you start working it around, it's pulling up all that goodness that you've done got on the bottom of that pot. That stuff that stick on comes up and it flavors your stuff. It's not burnt. It just gives it a good flavor. So I get my vegetables softened up, sweated down. You're not caramelizing them. You're sweating them down. Then I throw my garlic in, go about 30 seconds to a minute more because you don't want to burn that garlic. Then it's time to start thinking about building the gumbo. So that's when I start adding my roux. I put my roux back in, get it working around in the vegetables. I will take, I usually use chicken broth when I'm making chicken sausage gumbo. So you can either buy broth or have some broth that you've already made, but I'll put a little in at a time, like say a cup, start stirring it. Cup, start stirring it because that'll break that roux down in those vegetables. If you just dump all your liquid in, it all separates and you get it clumpy and all that. And you don't want those clumps. I mean, they'll eventually cook out if you do that, as I have done it before I learned to slowly add my broth. But I'm slowing my broth and I'm slowly adding that broth and mixing it until it turns into, it looks like, kind of like a gravy almost or a sauce going on in there. It's all blended. It's all, smooth with chunky with the vegetables. Then I add the rest of my liquid. Then I add a bay leaf, I add my Cajun seasonings, and usually all I do is some king crawl. I may put in a little bit more white pepper to give it a little punch, and then I may put in a little extra onion powder. But that's about all the seasonings I do to it. I'll taste it as it goes and see if it needs more salt and pepper, but that's usually about it. So once I get that going, got my bay leaf in there, I'll put my okra in, but I never put just uncooked okra in a gumbo because it gets slimy. So you can either cook it on the stove top, like saute the okra until the slime cooks off of it. You can throw it on a sheet pan in the oven and roast it until you're not trying to cook it like, all the way charred up.
You're just trying to pull the
you're trying moisture? To get the moisture out of it. It releases that slime that's in okra. And once that slime's gone, it's good to go. But this time, you know what I did? Air fryer, 400, 10 minutes. I shook it halfway through, and that okra was perfect. This was froze okra, straight out of the freezer. It's already cut up.
You dumped froze okra?
Froze okra in the air fryer. Well, first I put it in a bowl, seasoned it with a little olive oil and AP. Put it in the air fryer. Let it go 5 minutes, shook it 5 minutes. It was perfect. Slime was gone. They were starting to brown up on the edges a little bit, but it had a really good texture. Then it goes in the pot. And then I put my sausage back in the pot. And I bring it up to a simmer. And I still got my chicken to the side now. The most important thing is don't overcook that chicken. And it's because it'll go stringy and it'll go mushy. You don't even know what's in there. Yeah. But so I get my base going. It's got the okra in it. It's got the sausage in it. It's got, all the liquid in it. And usually for a cup of roux, a pot of gumbo, I'm usually 3 quarts of broth. That's mine, 3 boxes. And that the consistency is just right. And then once that comes up to a simmer, I'll turn the heat down. I'll let it simmer about 30 minutes uncovered because I'm reducing it down some. Then I'll add my chicken to it, simmer it another 30 minutes. So it's like a full hour simmer. And sometimes I'll even cut the heat off and just let it hang out covered. Then I'll put the lid on it and just let it sit there because what happens is as it cools down, it's just like a pot of chili. Those flavors start coming together and it tastes really good. Then I'll slowly bring the heat back up when I'm ready to serve it. Bring it almost back. You want it a little bubbling, but not really boiling or anything. Taste it, see if it needs any doctoring. You can add a little more Cajun seasoning if you need it. You can add salt and pepper if you need it. Most time it don't. And that's when I'd put my raw, peeled, tailed off shrimp in there. And I just do that the last 5 minutes right before serving it. That way the shrimp still has
Thawed.
pop. Yeah, they're thawed. They're not froze. They're thawed. I don't want to add any more moisture to it. I season those with a little king crawl, drop them in. And, I mean, that's not really a Louisiana thing. You're probably not going to catch anybody making sausage and chicken gumbo and then putting shrimp. But I like it personally. I think it gives it a little more. So
well, that's a good thing about gumbo. You can put
make it whatever you want.
want.
But it's got all those elements, and then I serve it. Now, traditionally, scoop of rice, gumbo, maybe a little filet, ground filet over it, or
what's filet?
Sassafras root.
Okay.
I don't know why. I mean, I guess people used it to thicken gumbo at one time. You can put it in it, or some people serve it over it. It's okay. I don't have to have it for my gumbo. I do like hot sauce. To add hot sauce and green onion. That's what I top mine with. But I have figured out the best way to eat a bowl of gumbo.
You're not going to say potato salad, are you?
No, I'm not saying potato salad's not bad. Is it the best way? No. It's okay. He gives it it's a creamy element to it, to gumbo, if you like your gumbo creamy. But this one is ultimate flavor. I take French bread, and I usually slice it up, wrap it in foil, throw it in the oven. 12 to 15 minutes. It's hot, and then when the French bread comes out, get you some room temp butter and smear it thick on both sides. Put that in your bowl. Put your gumbo, or sometimes I will put just a little bit of rice on the side of that, just like a little ice cream scoop, not a big mound of rice. Then put my gumbo in there and let it sit for a few minutes, and that gumbo mixes with that butter on that bread. And that bread smothered in that gumbo is it's one of the best bites of food you can have.
It's really good.
It is like, Michael ate like 3 bowls of it. It was incredible.
I'm not a big rice fan, so I've been using bread and butter
with gumbo for years. Oh, really? Oh, I thought I invented something when I did that. I was like, man, because I always have bread on the side and then double butter bread and a bowl of gumbo. Oh, man, it doesn't get much more delicious than that.
That's a good pot of.
I saw you froze some of it. Did you? Yeah.
Well, I didn't want it to go bad.
Yeah. It's hard to eat a whole pot of gumbo.
It is. Yeah.
I'm up for the challenge, but after 2 bowls, it's like I'm not gumboed out. I did see, so at Monday in Louisiana, Mondays is traditionally red beans and rice day. But usually after you've had red beans and rice, there's always some red beans left over. There might not be no rice left over, but there's usually red beans. You make a big pot of it, right? Well, they take the red beans left over and make what they call gumbo beans or something like that, where they put those red beans in the gumbo. I've never tried it, but that sounded so interesting to me. I was like, man, I bet that would be good. Adding red beans to your gumbo. Would you be down for that, or is that just faux pas to you?
You're not getting me.
You're not getting you. I don't have you interested on the red beans added to gumbo. I think I would try good, but I love red beans and rice.
Yeah, you like red beans and rice.
It's one of my things.
We'll talk about red beans and rice, your red beans and rice recipe later.
All right.
I think you need to do a gumbo recipe.
Have I never done one?
I don't think so.
Oh, yeah.
You've done a red beans and rice.
Yeah.
But never a gumbo.
I mean, I just walked through it. I can do it. Yeah. I don't need much of an excuse to make a gumbo, that's for sure.
So this lady, she cooked her chicken in the broth.
Raw chicken?
Raw chicken in the broth. She said she wanted it to add its chicken flavor to the broth. And then it was just old white chicken when she pulled it out,
I would be willing to bet these people are not from Louisiana or a state that borders Louisiana.
I was going to say, you ain't from Louisiana.
You making Yankee gumbo. That ain't even gumbo. You got toasted flour and you're boiling your chicken in it. I don't know, man.
How do you
It's the world coming to.
So if you use a jar gumbo or jar roux, how do you make it less oily? Or is it just something you deal with?
I try to mix it up the best I can, but a lot of times that jar roux still, the oil sits on top. So I have been known to skedaddle a little bit of that.
Just pour it off the
oil.
top.
Yeah, just get that oil. I don't need all that oil. I want the good stuff that's down in it, but I want it mixed up. It's almost like a paste. And so when you get it to that consistency, and all it does, it speeds up your gumbo making process. So I think a cooked gumbo, if you got time to cook a roux and you kind of understand how you cook a roux and what it's supposed to be like, it's better to do it yourself. But in a pinch, if you don't feel confident that you can make a roux, use the jar roux. And if you're way up north, just toast some flour. You put toasted flour to chowder top?
You're getting fired up.
No, like I've heard of the cooking chicken in the broth thing. Like that's not
crazy.
Yeah, like I do that when I make chowder.
Yeah.
I will say smoked chicken gives it more of a depth of flavor for sure. But yeah, like I don't know. I've only made gumbo one time and I was texting you the whole time.
Yeah.
So I made it like you made it. It was pretty good.
Was it good? Did it turn out? Did you make your roux?
Yeah, it was really, really good. I thought I almost burnt the roux, but I'd never made it before, so I didn't really know what I was looking for, but it tasted really, really good. So I guess I did.
You'd know if you burn it.
It'd
be real bitter and burnt tasting. I don't have a problem with cooking chicken in it. I just think that the chicken, I don't want to overcook my chicken for a gumbo. How many times? I've had it.
Well, she
before.
cooked it and then pulled it out.
Okay, so she did get it out of there and then put it back in at the end.
Yes.
Because I was going to say, if she left that chicken in there the whole time, it's going to be so stringy. It's going to, it's just not going to be good eats.
But typically, you cook the chicken and use the chicken fat to cook the veg, right?
I would. That's exactly what I do. When I make it, I use boneless, skinless thighs.
She did too.
And I brown my sausage first, and then I leave all those drippings, all that good griggery that's stuck to the bottom of the pan in there. Season my chicken. Cut up chicken thighs and put them in there and cook them in that grease. I don't have to add. Usually, I don't have to. Sometimes I take out oil, depending on how much sausage oil cooked out, and I fry that chicken in that and just kind of get it all brown. I'm not trying to get it done. Then I get it out of that.
We've done this.
Yeah, we've done this, and then I put my vegetables. So I got all those flavors, and that's why I don't need as oily of a roux because I don't strain all that.
Yeah.
I leave all that in that pan, and then I add my roux back in once I get my vegetables to the right doneness to stop them. And that's when you start slowly adding your broth and getting the mixture right. It's a little process.
Oh, yeah. Anything like that. Anytime you're working with broths or roux or anything like that, it's always a.
But your broth's going to taste better. Like even if you use thighs and you cut the thighs off the bones and you use those bones and, whatever scraps to make your broth, you concentrate those flavors and cook it down like you do chicken and dumplings, and then you strain it, and then you got your good broth when you still got your meat that you're going to put in there. But I would do chicken part. You could do wingtip. You could use any parts of carcass of a chicken and make your broth, and then either roast or smoke your chicken or cook it in the grease like I did and all the drippings of the sausage, and it's going to taste better. I mean, a little more involved.
Paul Poudron says that every great dish starts with a good broth.
Yeah.
He says that is the cornerstone to every great
now
a good broth.
There are places down in New Orleans, and I'm sure all major cities that have, a pretty good culinary scene that are just like broth houses. That's all they do. And these restaurants buy. I mean, I guess they got big. I'm imagining, I've never seen one, but I'm going to imagine like industrial vats of broth cooking for hours. And then they package that up and they sell that to the restaurant. And that's why some of them are they're not making all that broth in their kitchen there. Somebody else has really worked, and there may be some roux houses that make roux like that. I don't know.
That'd be interesting. I need to look into that.
But a broth is the essence of a lot of those dishes.
Yeah,
you're only as good as the broth you use, and
especially like a chicken and dumplings dish.
Yeah,
it's so simple. It's kind of chicken, dumplings, and that broth.
Mm. I imagine I
gotta
could
develop.
Like my gumbo recipe would be a lot better if I took the time and made the broth too, but most of the time I'm dumping Swanson's or something out of the box in there just for the sake of time.
But you're getting a lot of your flavor from the roux and
everything
and
else
things like that. But like
that's just another like if I was cooking a gumbo competition, I would make the broth that week sometime, and I would have it chilled and get it would be like a gelatinous
thick
container of stuff, and then when you put it in there and put a little heat to it, it just lets go because you've got all the the stuff from the bones that's cooked out in it, and it's got all that. Is it collagen? I'm not sure what makes it congeal like gelatin like that, but it's so good.
It's good.
It's really good.
That don't come out of the Swanson's box.
No, it doesn't. It looks like a gel almost.
Mm-hmm.
Really good broth does when it's room temper cold.
It looks like snail sinew.
Snail slime?
Snail
What
slime.
you're trying to say?
You can buy snail slime for your face. It looks like it. On my TikTok, I've seen a lot of people talking about olive oil and how what you're buying at the store is not necessarily real olive oil. Mm-hmm. Have you seen that?
I just know there's different, not degrees. What word am I looking for here? Qualities of olive oil. The cheaper stuff, if you're not, if you're buying the cheap stuff, is it real olive oil? It's probably a blend of some other stuff. And yeah, I'm sure it's made out of olive some kind of way. But is it as good as quality as some of that, what is it, extra pressed, double virgin, whatever they call it, olive oil?
Unfiltered.
I don't even know if I've ever had like super expensive olive oil.
I don't know.
I get what they got at Walmart and Kroger. But I know that, what's the brand we like? Bertolli? I don't know how where does it rate up there in olive oils?
I didn't go into brand when I was looking into it, but they're saying that 80% of extra virgin olive oil on American shelves is fake.
It's not even olive? Like
It's blends of vegetable, soybean, palm, and canola.
that's just false advertising right there.
Well, you're going to appreciate this. Do you want to know why?
No, why?
The mafia.
Really? They control the olive oil market? Heck yeah.
It controls.
And we just thought they did gambling.
Yeah, the Italian
and
mafia
women.
running numbers.
Yeah.
They're running oils, baby.
They're running oils.
The Italian mafia controls most olive oil production and the market. They own a third of the olive fields in Italy.
Wow.
So they import low-grade oils from countries like Greece and Spain, and then they label it as EVOO. And there is a task force that oversees it in
There's
Italy.
a quality control task force of olive oil?
Yes.
Man, how do you get that job? What do you do? Just go around checking oil
I guess
drums,
so.
pulling it off the shelf and testing the purity of it?
So if you're buying olive oil, you need to make sure that there's a batch date, a bottle date, or a date where the olives were harvested
Man, that's
on
good.
that bottle.
I've
That's
never
so
looked for
much.
that on
I
a
know,
bottle of
that's
olive
so much
oil.
to do. Now I got something else to do at the
I
grocery
thought I was
store.
eating cleaner by using, the olive
Yeah.
oil. I'm still just eating mixed blend.
Yeah, you're just eating vegetable oil.
Is grapeseed oil the same way? Is there like different degrees of grapeseed oil?
I don't know. I'd have to look into that.
That's one I like to use a lot, just because it's got a higher smoke point.
But most of the extra virgin olive oil on your market shelves is neither Italian nor virgin.
Huh.
And just a few tips about your olive oil. Don't buy anything in a clear bottle because light can destroy olive oil. It
That's
makes
why
it
they sell
go
in
faster.
that green tinted bottle.
Yeah. And glass is less reactive to heat and light, so it keeps it longer if you're storing it for a long period of time. Plastic is fine for short term, but oils go rancid because of exposure to heat, light, and air. And the glass bottles.
How long? So when we buy a bottle of olive oil, what's the shelf life of it? Does it depend on how cool you keep it? And
I don't
stuff?
know. Olive oil,
Because I have had some that's like, ooh, something's wrong with this oil. It's
Oh,
gone
yeah.
bad.
you know it. It has a smell, like a
Mhm,
rancid smell. Olive oils can last 18 to 24 months from the
Oh.
time they're bottled.
I'll use them in that time.
Yeah.
So we pour them up. Like we buy that green plastic bottle and then pour it into a glass. I don't know. It's just like a salad
just-
dressing bottle with the little jigger lid on top.
It's just so much easier to.
You grab it.
dispense,
Yeah, you can set
yeah.
it on the counter. I guess we shouldn't leave it on the counter because
Yeah,
sunlight
'cause
does come
light.
through windows. Maybe we should just always keep it in the little cabinet. But we probably keep our oil, like at our house, and I don't know, Tyler, I don't know where you keep your oil, but we keep it in the little 2 cabinets above the stovetop.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you think about it, it's probably catching a lot more heat up there in those cabinets and moisture from stuff cooking.
That's true.
I mean, your vent pulls through there. I wonder if that's not the ideal place to keep oils.
Probably not. Now that I'm thinking about it,
I mean, that's where we keep all our oil.
it is.
Just because it's right there by where you're cooking,
And our extra salt.
Yeah.
It's extra
there's
seasoning.
4 or 5 partial boxes of salts and
Yeah.
stuff. And your bouillon cube. It's probably a terrible place to keep. I've just never thought about that, but I might have to go do some rearranging in the kitchen when we get home.
Oh, you're not rearranging.
I'll pull it
that.
all down. I'm gonna pull it all down.
We have one of those like spinning like revolving cabinet door things.
Yeah.
And that's where we keep ours. So it's kind of off to the left of the oven, so it's probably good. But we go through olive oil in my house like crazy. Like
We do too.
I'd be surprised if a bottle lasts us 2 weeks. Like it goes.
Yeah.
Olive oil and butter. That's what we cook with. And I use both because you can't use all butter because it browns too much. It'll burn when you add some olive oil. But when I'm sauteing, and I don't care, I don't always look for the extra virgin because that stuff's more like the extra virgin one. Understand is better for like salads and stuff you're going to eat not heat.
Yeah, not cooking.
Yeah, but when you're cooking with it, I just go for olive oil.
And we've always tried to recreate where you put a little olive oil and seasonings in a dish and dip your bread in it,
Yeah.
and it always tasted. I'm like, this is not as good as it is in the restaurant.
You got to use a better quality olive oil for
We're
dipping.
not using, yeah.
That cooking olive oil is probably not the one you want to be serving with bread or making a vinaigrette with.
We need to get like a really good fancier. Well, you came up with this idea. You were like, you pulled the oil off maybe mozzarella's.
Yep.
You pulled the oil from the mozzarella, and we seasoned
It
that
makes
up.
the best bread dipping oil.
It was
You ever
so
use that? Have you
good.
seen the little mozzarella balls that
Uh-huh.
come in some kind of oil?
Yep.
That stuff, when you drain it out, because it has all those herbs and seasonings and stuff. It's like marinated mozzarella balls. That's what it is. They usually have them over in the cheese section or the deli. But man, that's good oil to dip bread in.
We put a little salt and extra pepper in there.
Maybe a drizzle or two of balsamic.
Yeah, and it was as good as anything you get in a restaurant.
Sounds dang good.
Yeah, maybe that's what they're using. They're not
Maybe.
using olive oil. So we also did a video about how you select ribs in the package.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get the best?
Well, it takes going through ribs. Like when you go to a store, or
What's the best store? What's the store you go to for ribs?
I mean, just every day of cooking ribs, probably Kroger. I mean, it's just handy. Walmart has them. Sometimes I can find some decent ones at Walmart too. Sam's, sometimes. I'll tell you what, our Sam's has been slim, man. I went in there the other day looking for some lamb to cook. I couldn't find a rack of lamb anywhere, and they didn't
They
have
used to
hardly
have it
any
all
beef.
the time.
They didn't have hardly any beef. They didn't have hardly any pork. It was weird. It was real weird. I don't know if it was just the time of day, because I mean, it's like I'm going there, before lunch. It's not like it's bright and early. As soon as I get it stocked, it was just, I guess our Sam's just does that much traffic. But
Yeah, I've heard that HEB is.
oh yeah, but we ain't got one.
We
of
ain't
those.
got one.
That's like my dream grocery store to have. Every time I go to Texas, I have to go in one. They're awesome. But, I just really what I like to look for is individually wrapped ribs. That's kind of my indicator that I can see that slab of ribs. If I pick it up, I'm looking to see how uniform that rack is from end to end. With the big thick end, if it's super thick and then it tails down to nothing or just looks odd shaped, I don't want it. I want it to be fairly close thickness all the way down the rack. Then I'm flipping it over and I want to see straight bones. Just because it's a visual thing for me. It makes them easier to cut if they're straight. Now, it started from competition cooking because we wanted the straightest bones to go in a box. But even if I'm cooking them at home, I still want to see the straight bones because they just look, but they cook better when they stay straight on the grill. They don't curl up. It's easier to cut them without that bone having that 45-degree angle on it as it goes down. I just think it looks better. And so I want to make sure the pack is sealed up good. I don't want to get an airy pack to where it's, it looks like it's open and there's a lot of juice and
It's like
stuff
a
in it.
rib snow globe
Yeah, I
off
want
in
it to be
there.
super tight in it. That, to me, it means they're a little fresher. Now, it's very rare that I find fresh, not froze
I was thinking to say you
ribs at
it's
the
almost-
Kroger or
we always
Walmart.
found
They usually
fresh.
always, come in froze. And that don't bother me too much as long as I can see them. I mean, would I like to have all fresh pork? Absolutely. But it's not always the case to get it like that. Sometimes, Sam's did have them there for a while. You could get some really good fresh ribs there. But they're all thawed. You don't buy frozen ones at Sam's. But they usually don't even have the St. Louis cut. It's either a whole rack of double rack or 3-pack of baby backs. But they've changed some of that now. I think some of them are going to 2s and even singles at Sam's. So when they have them, but I look for the single bone racks. Do I have a?
And you
now,
will dig through.
A little bird told me his name may have been Mark Williams. That my man Kevin down in Panama City, the butcher shop down there, y'all know we love to get meat from, has a new brand. These must be a comp rib if Mark was messing with them, but he says it may be the best tasting St. Louis cut spare ribs he's ever cooked.
So it's a brand.
I don't know. I don't even know what brand it is.
You don't even know.
But I heard, so I'm gonna have to. I need to talk to Kevin. But I did cook some wild turkey yesterday. We recorded it, but it's gonna be for the Buck Junkies, right, Tyler?
Yes,
it's
sir.
not a How to Barbecue Right. I did bang bang turkey. I thought that was a.
How did they turn out?
I don't know. I made it. I hope they let me. I guess they can't stop me from using that.
Bang bang turkey.
Yeah, because I think that might be a trademark phrase from a restaurant.
I've seen every restaurant.
Most of them
use
do
bang-
boom boom, and I guess
Oh,
boom
yeah.
boom would have applied too.
That's
But I did
true.
bang bang because I bang banged his head. So that's why. But basically, I made marinated that wild turkey breast. Well, I cut it up into chunks, kind of like turkey nuggets, basically, and marinated.
Like how big? Like was it strips?
Bite size. Well, it was various sizes. I didn't.
Are we talking boneless wing size?
Yeah.
Yeah. Boneless wing size, and then I marinated it with some buttermilk, hot sauce, and a little seasoning like King Crawl, and let it soak. And then we, set up my little dredge station with my seasoned flour and egg wash. Did that to it. Put it on a rack so it'd dry, and then fried it up at 350 degrees, and then whipped up my sauce. And that's a simple sauce that is so good.
What is it?
I need to do a recipe on how to barbecue right with it, because it's, blue plate mayonnaise. Start with a cup of that, and then sriracha sauce, and then sweet Thai chili sauce, and then a little honey just to balance it out. And you can season a little if you want, but it really don't need it. And I whip that up, and if the consistency's not right, you just add like a tablespoon of water at a time until you get it to where it's kind of like a creamy wing sauce.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I fried fried the wild turkey bites, toss them in that and serve it with whatever. If you got a little extra left over, I pour you a little out in a bowl for serving. Then garnished it with a little green onion, and man, they were phenomenal.
I'm a changed man.
Tyler had never had wild turkey.
I was a little scared. I think I've heard people talk about the texture just being so different than a regular turkey. And it was
and stuff, yeah.
None of that. It was so good. It was probably like one of the better things. Like, I have a list of the things Malcolm's made that I've tried. It's definitely up there. Like,
did you like it
really
that
good.
much?
Yeah, it was really, really good.
It was good.
But did everybody else get to try it?
Oh yeah, Jamie took the rest of it home. When they came back from filming some other videos, and they said, "This ready to eat?" And I was like, "Yeah." So Mikey, Jamie, Mark, all of them tried it, and it was like, man, it was phenomenal. It was really good.
You could call
but
it.
we kind of come to the conclusion: anything you fry like that and toss in the sauce is going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, you would be hard. I bet I could do some raccoon or possum bites,
Some
and y'all
turtle.
would be like, "Man, these are good," because you marinate it in buttermilk, takes all the wild flavor out, and then you season it up and fry it with all that, with the crusty coating on the outside, and then you toss it in a sauce. I mean, as long as you can chew it, you're probably gonna think it's pretty good.
So we're gonna be okay in the apocalypse as long as we have a fryer and some blue plate.
That's it. Yeah. Heck yeah.
We'll be eating possum.
We'll need chickens. That'll be my thing. I have to go into. I can make it off chickens and blue plate. Because we can get anything else as long as we got some bullets or some traps.
So I started thinking about sourcing wood and how you source wood and where you find wood, and that's kind of a tricky.
It can be,
thing.
yeah, for sure. 'Cause, I mean, I guess if you're from an area that doesn't have a lot of different.
It's
good
not
wood.
easy to get it shipped.
Well, the problem is you can find places to order it online, but it's all been kiln drying, and they have to do that so states will let them ship it across state lines because they don't want to risk there being any bugs or anything in it that's going to introduce it to another region and maybe cause a problem with the trees or anything they have. So they say you got to dry it out, and kiln dry, I mean, it's like a big oven. They put the wood in there and they really hammer it with heat to take the moisture content out of it. I guess it kills anything else.
Yeah.
I guess the high heat, and then they sell it. So this wood that you see in your academies or your Home Depots or Lowe's or anywhere like that, Walmart's, that's all been kiln drying. What I like to smoke with is local wood. So here in Mississippi, we have really great access to hickory, to wild cherry, to pecan, to oak. Those are the four main species that you'll see me smoking with.
Because that's what you have that access.
Because that's what we have access to. And it's really great cooking wood. Out in Texas, they got a lot of post oak. They got a lot of pecan. They got the mesquite. So that's why they use that. So wood's kind of regional to me. And a lot of times the barbecue is in those areas because that's what the pit masters have cooked it with. So it just happens to be hickory's pretty commonly found and oak's really commonly found. So you see that used a lot. But your fruit woods like your apples and your peaches and your cherries, those make excellent smoking woods for getting flavor.
Well, where do you find local wood?
I mean, if you can find a tree service, a lot of times those guys will sell cooking wood too on the side. That's a good place. Some of your stores that sells grills and stuff, they source local wood. There'll be somebody that comes and sells them.
Barbecue shop, yeah.
We've had a guy here that would come to the shop and, we could buy, he would already bundle it up for resale. And it was some stuff that he went and cut. People will have those trees go down in their yards or that, they'll need somebody to remove them. So that they see a good species of tree that they know they could sell for cooking wood. That a lot of those guys will put it to the side and stuff and sell it. I mean, in a pinch, I've cooked with those wood chunks that you buy at the store. I've cooked with those splits. I'm not scared to. You don't like the dry wood is great for BTUs. It's great for heat. It doesn't give you as much smoke flavor because the moisture's been cooked out of it. It's been dried out of it.
So you're saying the kiln wood
Yeah.
dried.
Yeah, it's been super dried, so you don't get as much smoke from it. It'll go right to fire, right to flame first. It's great for running in a stick burner because it gives you a good heat. It's not as great for flavoring. You really want a greener wood, which greener just means it has a higher moisture content. It hasn't been seasoned as long. And so,
is there a magic number?
I've seen people say like you want wood that's got like 18-20% moisture content for flavor. For your dry wood, they want down to as low as 15%, but I never get caught up in those numbers of it. I just kind of know where my wood comes from and know what I'm doing with it. Often when you see us cook, if I'm not running a stick burner, I'm burning on a bed of coal. So that's my main heat. So I don't have to use that really, really dry wood. I'd like to have a little greener wood because I'm just adding enough wood to give me some smoke flavor. And, when we first started cooking, everybody, like you go to these barbecue contests and everybody have a 5-gallon bucket full of wood
Yeah.
and they fill it up with water and soaking it, trying to rehydrate it to get it to last longer, get it to smoke more. It doesn't really work like that. Once you've had that wood seasoning, hydrating it back in water is not going to add that much. What it's going to do is going to make it steam more. So you're really not getting any more smoke flavor out of it doing it that way. So you just need to know. I mean, if you're serious about it and you really think that you're playing with these wood flavors and you want to get the best, go outsource you some local wood, and then get you a little moisture meter and dry it and then go to cooking with it. So
I bought you a moisture meter for Christmas.
I've used it too, just to check. I mean, it's not something I'm not going to cook with this because it's 90% moisture
Yeah.
or whatever. It was just interesting for me to see and see what it burns like. I mean, like some green wood. So if you went down and cut down a tree and you went to smoking with it, yeah, you could use it. Like I've had some cherry off a tree that was cut down that same week, but it's a lot stronger because it hasn't had time to lay on the ground, hasn't had time to dry out any. So it has a lot more moisture in it. So it's going to give you a thicker smoke. It's going to be a lot stronger flavor, and you will over smoke stuff too. So you just have to take all that into account. Just
because when you're cooking, when you're heating it, you're having to cook off the moisture.
Yeah, and some of those impurities come with it and mix in your smoke, and it can give you some bad flavors. And so that's why you want it somewhat seasoned. You don't want it completely dry. But
I remember when you first started cooking, everybody was soaking wood.
Everybody, that's how we
it was
did
like
it.
a thing.
We would go buy sticks of wood or whatever, or chunks, and we put them in a bucket and fill it up with water. That was the first thing you did at the contest: get your wood soaking. And then when you added it on, it would go to steaming and sizzling, and then make that white stick smoke, and you're cooking all that steam off that wood where you had it in the water.
But nobody does that anymore.
No, you don't see.
I don't
it
even
anymore.
hear people talk about it. Like,
I guess people kind of realize nobody was talking about why they did it. They were just doing it because they saw somebody else do it.
why'd you do it?
Because I saw Wayne Booth doing it. He soaked all his wood. John
He was
Wheeler, they were
winning,
soaking all their
yeah.
wood. So
They were the
why not?
top
Yeah.
dogs back then.
That's
Yeah.
right.
On the way home, we stopped by Buc-ee's and got a brisket sandwich
What do you
and a
think about-
brisket taco.
That was
Did you get a
the best-
brisket taco?
yeah. It was scrambled eggs and then cheese and brisket.
How does Buc-ee's brisket stack up to those that you've had out?
Way up there.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. It is way up there. I don't know if there's anything better at a gas station.
Oh
A
yeah,
Buc-ee sandwich.
they got a gas station
Yeah. Locked
not
down.
locked down. I'm talking about restaurants.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. It's better than brisket restaurants I've been to.
You know what's really good is they have like the sliced turkey sandwiches, the smoked turkey. That's really, really good.
What's the one?
I accidentally got one.
But they call it something. You'd have to look it up.
It was like 3 different meats
yeah,
or something.
on one sandwich,
Yeah.
it was like, I don't know what all it was, but that sandwich was really good.
I thought I was getting a brisket and I got that one, but it was pretty delicious.
Yeah.
I think
You can go to Buc-ee's and it's like, okay, I'm just going to go in, we're going to use the bathroom and like, get a drink or something. $182 later. They trap you. You get in there and it's
well, you
just
bought
like
a gift for your mom. And
yeah, you have to. You can't just, and there was all kinds of stuff I wanted to buy, other than what I did. You got this little cart, little tote you're toting around, just putting stuff in it before you know it just loaded down.
You're like, I got to try the beaver nugget. I've never had this kind of Buc-ee's before.
Oh yeah, by the time you pick up pecans, beaver nuggets. You get a drink, and then you get a water.
Yeah, you get a backup drink.
Yeah, you get a backup drink because you're gonna try something. Yeah, and then you get a sandwich, and then you get a kolache, and then you get a beaver tail. You get some boiled eggs. I mean, it's just like it all goes in the basket, and you get up there.
Tell me about how you've been doing good.
Yeah.
It's like a cult though. Like there's pajamas and like all kinds of stuff. They do like seasonal drops and stuff. So there's people that go there like and get all the seasonal
Really?
stuff. It's
I have some Buc-ee's Christmas pajamas.
bought
They're
a
like my
fire-
favorite.
I've got a fire pit from Buc-ee's. Like that, one of those big fire. I had to have one. I think I got that one in Alabama.
You did on coming back from Royal Oak.
Yeah, because we just happened to have a truck. And I was like, oh, I'm getting that fire pit this time. Because most of the time you're in the car or something. You ain't got
Yeah.
room. You got all the luggage and everything. I got me a fire pit from Buc-ee's.
They had a collapsible table I was eyeing, like a tailgate table, you know?
Yeah, I saw
Fold
that. That was
up.
pretty cool. That double-seater thing was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a
they had.
double-seater tailgate
I know
chair.
what it is because everybody's going in there and they're in like a frenzy and everybody's running around grabbing stuff. So it makes you think you got to grab stuff. They've got it figured out. They're probably pumping it full of oxygen like they do the casinos. They got it to where you can't figure out which entrance you came in. You're like, you're just in there. The Hotel California gas stations. But they got the nicest bathrooms,
They
man.
do.
It's like you go in there and it's like a personal suite.
They do.
They've even got cleaner in the bathroom. Like, and it tells you, like, okay, before you use the toilet, here's the stuff. You put this on it and you wipe it this way. You know, it's like the airplane instructions. Like,
Really?
yeah, you
I've
didn't
never
notice
noticed
that? Heck yeah. I was impressed.
But the brisket and their smoked turkey is pretty good. And there's a guy like standing behind there just constantly chopping up brisket on this big wooden
Yeah, he's like,
butcher
brisket
truck.
ready. And they all, chop, brisket.
Is that what they say?
I don't know what they say, something like
But they're
that.
hollering something.
The whole time. And then people just run over to it. It's like, get all that fresh brisket they chopped up. Man, that's a genius model. You could create all that buzz around it and you got people lined up and they're open 24 hours. Have you ever been to Buc-ee's where you were the only person in there?
No, but
I think those registers, if you could look at their like back of the house and
Timestamp,
see their
yeah.
numbers, it's just the wheel that just keeps on ticking.
it's like on Christmas vacation when he finally gets those lights to work.
Yeah.
His odometer.
Yeah, that's how Buc-ee's cash register does. And they pay their employees a crazy amount of money. Or at least on gas pumps,
Yeah.
it shows you can make $250,000 working.
Oh, Michael.
What do you think you have to do at Buc-ee's to make $250,000? I was like, that's pretty good. I might need to rethink what I'm doing for a living.
Yeah.
I can cook brisket, you know.
Yeah.
The food service manager at Buc-ee's wouldn't be a bad gig. 2 weeks paid vacation, matching 401k to 6%.
Dang, you studied this.
I was pumping gas.
When we were leaving, Michael was calculating how much money he could make it working at Buc-ee's.
know.
And if I work night shift, you get an extra
Yeah, you get a
$2.
$2 differential. That's what he told me. They pay you $2 more, Dad, if you work nights. Well,
So I saw a TikTok this week. This lady got a 3-stack fish sandwich from McDonald's. Did you see it?
I showed that to Mikey. I was like, I have found your and Shell's sandwich.
Extra tartar. Did you see it?
Yes, it was 3 fish patties.
3 fish patties on a regular bun with extra tartar sauce.
I think in that video she said something about they were going to stack it up for her. She said, "No, I'm stacking it myself." And like she wanted the 3 sandwiches and then take them all and put them
Oh,
on
she
it.
did?
Yeah, she wanted to stack them herself. Can you imagine that? That has to be the nastiest thing.
I was kind of thinking it looked good.
You don't double stack a fish. First, you don't order a fish sandwich, and then you don't double stack them. But then she don't triple stack the cheese sandwich. You think it was like fish, cheese, fish, cheese?
There was no cheese. I didn't see cheese.
If it was McDonald's, they put you got
Oh,
to
you
ask
can
for
get
no
'em.
cheese, don't you?
Huh? No.
I don't know.
Yeah, you have to
I
ask
don't
for no
order
cheese.
fish sandwiches.
Anyway.
I'm gonna have to try that. What do you think it cost? $15?
sounds about right.
Yeah, probably.
Triple
Are
fillet
you
of
getting
fish.
triple fries too?
They should call it the big whaler, the big tuna or whatever. I don't know what kind of fish they use.
So this weekend you cooked a steak.
I cooked a delicious steak.
You cooked one of the best steaks I've ever
Yes,
had.
It was fine.
So do you want to talk about the meat first, or do you want to talk about the process?
Well, it was some Rousey Acre Ranch beef that I got, and that's Rhonda Rousey and her husband Travis Brown. They made Rousey Acres, and
Are they the ones growing the?
yeah,
cattle?
yeah, they're raising like know where your product's coming from, raised on the ranch, feed it all good stuff, and it's like grazed. I don't know if it's all grass fed, but it's like American Wagyu,
It's a
and it's it's grass fed, but then they finish it on grain, is what he told me when I talked to him. And I just wanted to try it and taste the beef. And tell you what, I was pretty dang impressed. It was really, really good. One of the better steaks I've cooked in a while, and it was just one of those Saturday night specials. Like, let's just throw something on it, get it on a Weber over some hot coals. Don't cook it too long, get it off, and eat it with a baked potato. And
so it was Akushi beef.
Akushi.
Akushi. Am I saying it correctly?
Akushi.
Or you don't know?
No, that was that Heartland brand beef. That was
Oh.
the Akushi. This is just American Wagyu.
Oh.
That's what I'm thinking. Akushi was that other one that I tried.
Well, I did a whole bunch of research on the Akushi.
Well, I mean, we cooked that too. We did a video with it.
That was the try.
I was just trying out that Heartland brand beef to try. You know, I'm not going to turn down some beef to try.
Yeah. So what was the ribeye we had?
It was
American
different.
Wagyu.
Yeah,
It wasn't the Akushi.
Mm.
Okay.
I cooked the Akushi tri-tip. I hadn't cooked the Akushi steak yet,
Okay.
but it's supposed to be some of the best tasting Wagyu you can get. Oh well, I don't even know if it's like, I don't even know if they consider it Wagyu. Don't ask
It
me.
is. You me tell you?
Yeah, tell me all about it because I don't know that much about it. I'm not an expert on Japanese beef at all.
Is it Wagyu or Wagyu?
I call it Wagyu.
We have always said
Yeah, I'm a
Wagyu.
redneck. I don't know.
So Wagyu
How
is
you
a
pronounce it?
collective. A Wagyu is a collective term for all Japanese cattle. Wagyu translates simply enough as Japanese cow.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Akushi is a specific Wagyu cattle breed, separate and distinct from other Japanese cattle breeds. So Wagyu is known around the world for its unbelievable taste, texture, and tenderness, and Akushi takes the unbelievable taste, texture, and tenderness to the next level.
To another level.
This is all,
another
I got all this straight from the Heartland cattle
Website.
website.
Okay.
Um,
So it's a specific species of Wagyu beef.
And okay, the thing that makes it different is most cattle store much of their fat under their hide, but Akushi are one of the few breeds that naturally deposit fat intermuscularly,
I will say this: that tri-tip was so marbled.
and that's rare.
It was phenomenal.
So the distribution of marbling improves the tenderness and flavors, which you know.
What'd you think about it?
The tri-tip,
Yeah,
it was really good. I thought that's what I was eating in that ribeye.
yeah.
So
Little did you know, I done swapped up brands on you.
So the Heartland cattle, they say they conduct DNA verification to preserve the purity of the Akushi breed and ensure a consistent, high-quality beef eating experience.
That sounds like marketing.
So let me tell you why they say it's heart healthy. You want to hear this?
Yeah, that was what got me. They said this is heart healthy beef. I said okay, let's hear that spin.
So Akushi beef has a higher concentration of monounsaturated fat.
The good fat.
Yes. The American Heart Association notes that it can lead to lower cholesterol, the prevention of coronary heart disease, and weight loss.
Oh, damn! I can eat that fatty beef, and it's going to make my heart better and help me lose some weight.
Yeah. We need some more of that.
Yeah. They make those kind of Reese's peanut butter cups. To do that.
So Akushi beef, I'm smelling burnt over there.
What
Are
is it?
y'all smelling? It smells like burnt plastic.
Tyler, zoom in on our picture. I can't see this thing
think
sitting
I know.
beside me. Oh no, it's doing fine.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, you got to leave 4 inches around the.
If we burn something up today in here in the podcast room,
Okay, so Akushi beef is also a natural source of oleic acid, which gives it the buttery taste and is good for the heart. And oleic acid is actually a monounsaturated omega-9 fatty acid.
I wonder how many doctors out of 10 say it's healthy for you. Just like one of them said he thinks it is, or is it like 9 out of 10 healthy beef?
I didn't get that.
Fatty, healthy
yeah.
beef.
But we got to.
That's all I needed was proof that it was. I believe it.
I just need you to tell me. You
Yeah.
eat this big old steak, you're going to lose weight.
Yeah. See how that works for us. I already know.
So the steak that you cooked this weekend, how did you cook it?
Oh, all I did was
How'd you season it?
I did a little bit of Willingham's because I like a little bit of that Worcestershire flavor on it. And so instead of doing like a marinade, I dusted some Willinghams on it and let it melt, and it kind of reconstitutes some of that dehydrated Worcestershire in that.
Do you think Willinghams is easy to get nationwide?
No, probably. I mean, yeah, you can probably get it on Amazon. I don't know very many people that sell it, but it's a Memphis thing.
Yeah.
I can find it in my local grocery store.
You could probably just order Worcestershire powder online.
Yeah, but it's got a little something else in it too. I mean, it's one of those things. It's like a little of it goes a long ways because it'll really get strong on you. But I just like that little flavor of Worcestershire on the steak. So I put a base of that. And I hit it with a little bit of Mark and Jamie's prime beef, and then a little bit of onion powder, a little bit of garlic powder, and a little bit of TX for the little crunch on top. And that was all I put on it. It was something simple. And then I threw it over hot coals. So I had one of those new grill grates on there, like universal one or whatever. And so I just set it on the middle, and I did 2 steaks at a time, like minute and a half, turn them minute and a half, flip them minute and a half, start temping them. When I saw it get to like 125, they're off. Rest them. I put down a little bit of butter, just nothing fancy, just a little bit of pat of butter on a sheet pan, and laid that hot steak on it. Just let it sit there and melt while I cook the other 2, and then it was time to eat them. I did 2 strips and 2 ribeyes. That's what they sent me.
They were
phenomenal.
It was
excellent.
It was seasoned perfectly. It was cooked perfectly. The meat just melted in your mouth.
It was all around texture, flavor, everything was really good on those.
So do you know what breed of cow that was?
No, I didn't get into research on all that.
Okay.
They just told me to try it, see what I thought.
I'll come back next week.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how
Tell me how
those
those
steaks are going to help us lose weight too.
Yeah. They're good for you too, turns out.
Duncan wants to know, can anyone tell me if they've ever smoked spare ribs and had the bones break apart while they're carving?
Like the actual bone break?
Yeah.
Something happened to that slab during processing. I've seen broken bones that way. I've never had them break during the cooking process. But,
he's talking about once he's cooked them, cutting them.
Yeah. The bone actually like breaks.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was probably broke before.
I would guess it was.
I can't imagine the cooking process doing
breaking
that.
it. Yeah. It shouldn't. They were probably already like something happened to that rack of ribs. I'd be interested to know if it happened to multiple ones or if it was just one instance where he was cooking a rack and
I think
had
it was
some broke
one
ribs.
instance.
I mean, you've seen chicken wings like that.
Mm-hmm.
Chicken wings get broke all the time, and you cook them and you bite into them. It's like, oh man, this one's all broke, and all the marrow stuff's leaching out. It's pretty good, actually. Chicken bone marrow is pretty good. I wouldn't tell nobody that I eat it. I do.
Chris asked, he's cooking beef ribs. Should he use maple bourbon pecan pellets or hickory pellets?
I'd probably go hickory.
Does it matter?
Yeah.
That's my question.
I'm pellets, not so much. You're not going, but I like a hickory pellet. There's nothing wrong with a little. I mean, you're not going to pick up on maple. It's not like it's going to make it taste like maple syrup or anything. It's real mild. So that's going to be a milder blend. And I would, if I'm going to use a pellet grill on the beef, like I'm probably going to go for a little more potent. The hickory would give you just a little bit better smoke flavor.
I like hickory on beef. Pecan's the best.
Pecan's good too. Yeah.
Clyde. So he cooked. He was going for dry rub ribs. He cooked them for 2 hours, wrapped them in foil with butter and barbecue sauce, and pulled them out of the wrap. And he says that his wife said they were a little slimy. Which, you know how it is.
This was my next question that I wrote down. I didn't write down whose name it was. I'm glad you did. So what that was you needed to go one step further. As soon as you took them out of that wrap, you need to get them on a little raised rack, put you a little more dry rub on them, and stick them right back on the pit and dry them out. And I guarantee you they won't be slimy. When they come out of that, you got to think when they come out of that wrap, they got all you've cooked out fat, and if you added any butter or anything in the wrap, it's all in there. So that's probably what was thinking was the slimy texture of them. I always it's very rare that you'll see me eat a rib straight out of the wrap. It usually always goes back on the pit.
Even if you're glazing
Even if I'm glazing them. Or if you let it sit there, you could even let it sit there on the counter a little bit in the air and then season it with a little dry rub. But they really need to go back on the pit. They really need to. I mean, even a dry rib. Yeah, that's really what makes it a good dry rib. You dust them a little bit as soon as you pull them out of the wrap because they're all wet and juicy and look ugly and horrendous. They just look. That's what the wrap does to them. They look much better come out of butcher paper than they do full. So that might be if
if
you
you're-
don't want to put them back on the pit, use butcher paper maybe to get them there, because that's going to absorb a lot of that grease and all the goodness that's cooking out of that rib. That paper's going to absorb some of it. It's not going to just let it sit there and pool, so it won't be as wet, or I wouldn't say slimy, but I don't know. Maybe it was the greasiness. It had a little extra grease to it or something. It was probably what it was.
I know
But dry those
exactly.
ribs out, and I guarantee you're going to be like, that's how you do a dry rib. And all it takes is get you a little raised rack or a sheet pan with foil on it. You can do both sides. Most of the time, I just do I call it the money side, the top side, the meaty side. I don't really worry about the back side. But in a contest, we will flip them bone up. We'll put a little rub on that backside first, stick them on the pit. It's like 5 minutes. Glaze it, flip it over. Then season the top side, let that dry out, then glaze that, and then we've got a perfectly glazed rib. But just for dry, it just goes dry seasoning.
And when
That's
you're
all it is.
when you're doing it in a contest, you're also, when you set that dry rub, like you put it back on the pit with just rub, you're also doing that for appearance
Yeah,
purposes.
you're trying to get that appearance back. I mean, there is no doubt that if something looks good, it's probably going to taste good to you. I mean, it's very rare that, man, that's horrendous. Oh, it tastes great. Look at that. You eat with those eyes first, and then you eat with that smell. That's it. And then you get your taste. So you got to cover all those bases. So how did y'all identify Primo as being a brand or a type of grill that y'all wanted to get in that ceramic realm?
Yeah, so that's a great question and a great story. So I started in 07, and I didn't know anything about anything with the business. So I just started traveling with the sales reps and going to open houses and dealer events. And you spend enough 3 or 4 nights in New York or Texas or trade shows, and you start seeing the same faces. And especially if you enjoy having drinks like I do, you start seeing the same faces at the bar. And the founder of Primo is an incredible story. His name's George. He's from Greece. He's a pharmacist by trade. His dad's a pharmacist. His brother's a pharmacist. He went to pharmacy school. Did not want to be a pharmacist. Was a charter captain. An American family came over. He was their captain. He ended up starting a relationship with the daughter.
Yeah.
Moved to the U.S. Left everything in Greece. Moved to the U.S. His father-in-law, a guy named Duke, amazing guy, had a big green egg, and for Thanksgiving they had a turkey. He loved it, so he took a big green egg back to Greece, and he sold it to a buddy. Then he took 3 or 4. So he reached out to Big Green Egg. He goes, "Hey, can I be your Greece, seller of these products?" They told him no. And if you meet George, he's more stubborn than my wife. And we'll just leave it at that. And he, a pharmacist by trade, decided he wanted to get into ceramics manufacturing in Georgia.
He just loved the grill.
He just loved the grill, and someone, quite frankly, kind of pissed him off. And
Yeah.
that was the spark that he needed, and he started from nothing. And I think he was on the 3rd plant in Georgia when we took it over. But, starting in a small, probably shack somewhere, and then actually get somewhat of a factory, and then get a nicer factory.
Yeah.
And that was just his story. He has 1 daughter, but wasn't interested in the business. And him and I talked for 4, 5, 6 years until we could kind of find, it's always easy to talk. It's always hard to get to an agreement and a number. And a pretty funny story. So when we first started talking, 2014, 15, I think, is when the first offer happened. And we bought in 2019. I got a Primo, and I've always been a Brawlmaster gas grill guy. We bought that in early 2000s. And for 5 years at my house, I never personally cooked on it because I was afraid of the ceramic, how to start it, what do I do? We had our biggest trade show the week when COVID hit in 2020 down in New Orleans. And, we get back from the trade show, and our factory people don't even let us come in the front door. Hey, you got to stay home for 2 weeks. So I'm stuck at home 2 weeks. And we had just bought the company 4 or 5 months prior, and I'm like, well, if this isn't the time to learn how to use this thing, it's now. And I'm the typical gas grill guy who's afraid to use a ceramic. How do you light the charcoal? How do you control temperatures? What do you do? I'm that guy. And if I can learn how to do it, anyone can learn how to do it, because I am not a slow cook expert. People always send me Facebook messages. How do you do this? I go, I don't know. I'm just trying to get through the day these days with a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
But if I can learn how to use it, anyone can learn how to use it.
Well, I think what what really immediately drew me to Primo when I started noticing was their design. I mean, I've got a big green egg at home, but I hadn't cooked on it in a while. But that oval design was so unique, and it gives you like a more cooking space, and it's easier for me to do a 2-zone fire in that to get that separation. I mean, I just think it's a great design grill. So
Absolutely.
I mean, I see why you would want to associate with that brand or think that you could take it to the next level.
Yeah,
if you're already in that industry.
It was just a really good fit. To me, life's all about relationships. Like George and I, in fact, if you go to our website, we went to his house in Greece last May, and we did I called it the Founder Series, and we cooked with some local chefs, and I asked some questions and stories, so kind of like the handoff between him and I. But the product has to win. Like, you can't just buy something because you like the guy.
Yeah.
The USA made manufacturing that's who we are. We sold about 80 to 90% of the same customers. So the U.S. wholesalers are people that are buying my other stuff. So that really worked from kind of that standpoint. And the oval, it's different. And my dad asked me this question. He goes, "Hey, for this amount of money, can't we just go import a grill from China and just call it a Brawl Master?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we could, but I can't promise you that we're going to be successful." Anyone, you know how many Chinese brands are out there?
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
Anyone, if you can order 1 or 5 or 10 at a time, you can put your own brand on it.
Oh, that's what I've been approached to do my own. I was like,
it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And but it's about that brand story and what's different. Like, what's your moat? And the USA Made and the Oval are our moats. And we have a patent on it, but doesn't mean you can't try to knock it off because people don't respect patents in the world anymore. But it's a pain in the butt to make. Like, it's not easy to make an oval ceramic. Like, the waste, the yield is not what a round is.
Yeah.
So that was the features that were attractive. There's something else that you can sell because everyone knows the big brands that are out there. And I firmly believe if people know about Primo, we win a high percentage of that business. Mm-hmm. But I think 90% of people, when they buy a ceramic, they don't even know a Primo. So that's kind of what we've been focusing on now post-COVID, because during COVID you can't build enough to sell. But now it's like, how do you get that brand out there? How do you make people aware? And that's what I really been focused on these last 18 months.
That's good though. I mean, you're still learning to cook. Do you feel like you've mastered it? Like I'm confident.
Like I've reached my peak.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be doing a 24-hour brisket because that's just not my thing. I would consider myself an expert on rotisserie chicken wings.
Yeah, there you go.
That is my go-to. I cook them every time. They're absolutely delicious.
The chicken wing is one of my favorite. It's my favorite part of the chicken to eat. I mean, I love it, but I love cooking wings.
And we haven't done that recipe.
I don't know. I haven't done the rotisserie.
Rotisserie at about 400 to 450 takes about two beers. And you don't have to watch it. You can go. I joke that the only kind of yard work I do is when I'm cooking on the Primo and having a couple drinks because it gives me energy.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go inside because I know what's inside my family. So I want to stay outside. So pulling weeds and just acting like I'm cooking when in reality you're spinning wings. You don't need to do anything at all.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of accessories for them too. That's the cool thing.
So that's what we did. So when we shared so many customers. So the due diligence was, hey, well, what do you think of Primo? Well, we love it. We love the Oval. We love USA, but they've been a little behind on accessories and they're a little behind on like their hinge and their chimney. So we had a list of like 5 or 7 things that we just needed to do. They're all, Primo was a small company. There wasn't any engineers. They didn't quite have like this like team that we have from a marketing and engineering standpoint that we can just roll this product in. So we came up with a list and 6, 7, 8 things and we knocked them out in about 18 months. And now, with the rotisserie, the pizza oven, a new chimney, a new hinge, a griddle, and all these different, things like that. Stuff that, quite frankly, he should have did years prior.
Yeah.
Just didn't happen. And then it's like, all right, well, we knocked out all those 6, 7 things. So what are we doing now? And that's when we moved into this bigger size.
So this week you did pork belly chicharrones. Say that.
Chicharrones. I don't know I really don't know. I'm not Spanish at all.
No.
In fact, I'm the big grande gringo. So I don't speak and I don't translate it very well, but I call it chicharrones. I don't know how you say it, but all it is it's pork belly that's been rendered some and then fried crispy. And if you have never tried it, I'm telling you, better don't walk, run to your nearest grocery store, get you a piece of pork belly, take it home, cut it up, and get it cooking. Let me tell you how I cooked it.
Well,
It's not the traditional way at all.
I wanted to talk about pork belly first. Like
Okay.
how it used to be very difficult to find.
Oh, you never saw it.
pork.
You never saw it.
When we wanted to cook it the first time you wanted to do a recipe with it, we had to go to Restaurant Depot.
Yep, I did.
We had to get like a special day pass or something. Because
It
back
was
in the day, KCBS would give you a day pass
Yeah,
to Restaurant Depot.
As long as you had your
long as you had the
KCS member,
membership.
yep, you could get in.
But we had to
And we used it a lot. I mean, that's where they had some pretty good stuff there.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, they do have. It's just so far out there.
I know.
All the way across Memphis.
It takes us over an hour to get there. But anyway, now they're a little more easy to find, would you say?
Yeah, because Kroger, Walmart, I mean, I see them just about every
Sam's,
grocery
yeah.
store. Sam's, yeah, just Costco has them. I mean, and they're, so it's the difference in that one's like when you go to Restaurant Depot and buy one, it's the whole slab of pork belly. It's huge. Probably weighs 10 pounds or more. Now you can find them in the grocery stores. They're about a 4 or 5 pound piece. It's kind of that, I guess they divide it in half or they take the center portion and they do some other stuff with the other of it. But it looks like a slab of Wright's bacon that hadn't been cured or sliced. That's the size of this. So 3 to 4 pound.
Is it
package.
expensive?
Not really. I think
Like
it's
per
about
pound?
$18 for a 5 pounder. So what's
That's not bad.
less than 4? Yeah, that's not bad at all. So
Cheaper
it's
than a
usually between
brisket?
18 $20. Yeah, it's way cheaper than brisket. They come skin off, the ones I buy. If you do get a skin on one, you want to take that skin off of it. But most of them are skinned and they're ready to cure, to cube up. If you want to make, pork belly burn ends with them or however you want to cook it, that's how they're ready to go. So out of the package, there's really no trimming to these.
Why did you want to do the chicharrones?
Well, so I've seen it on, like go to Mexican restaurants, seen it on menus. I've seen other people do videos on it, but I've never seen it done like on a pit. It's usually they'll take the pork belly and they'll cut it up into strips about like you're going to make pork belly burn ends, but just don't cube it, leave it the whole strip. And they'll take them and they'll cook them down in some water. It's kind of like boiling it. They're trying to render that fat in the water, getting it softer, getting
season
it
the
cooked.
water?
Yeah. A lot of times you'll see them, you'll see put dry seasoning and then
Yeah.
maybe herbs and stuff like that in the water. So where it's got some flavor, and then they cook it like that. And once it's pretty much done, it's still got a lot of fat to it. It's not taken all the way like for barbecue or for pork belly burn in or anything that far. And if I had to guess, probably about 175, 180 is what internal temperature it would be at that point. It's still a lot of fat. And then they take it and put it in some oil at a lower temperature and fry it. And so it's getting crispy. And so the texture is you've got some lean meat in there. You've got a lot of crispy, delicious fat, and it's real crunchy. I mean, and so it's pretty good. It reminds me a lot of crackling like you would get down in Louisiana at a
Yeah.
convenience store or one of those, boudin shops. It's a lot like that, except those are usually cut up into little bitty cubes, like smaller than a pork belly burn-in piece. And they're fried really hard. Like sometimes they'll break your jaw or something.
Yeah.
But this is kind of like that, but it's more meaty and it's real crispy. And man, if you have never tried it, it is fantastic.
So how'd you do it?
So what I did, I was like, well, how can I incorporate, I didn't know if it'd work or not. It's the first time I've ever done it. But I was like, how could I incorporate a smoker to get me some more flavor into that pork belly, still get it rendered, because you're just trying to cook the fat and get the lean meat cooked in it without drying it out, which it's hard to dry out pork belly. It's so much fat. So I thought, if I go ahead and cube it up, and I don't want to put too much seasoning on it because I want to put it in the grease at the end. I don't want to mess my grease up. So I was like, well, salt's
Or
not going to hurt.
burn your
Or burn my grease, yeah, because of the, if there's any sugar in the seasoning you're using or whatever, that stuff can burn when you put it in hot oil like that.
But salt doesn't burn, right?
But salt really doesn't. And I didn't look super, super heavy with salt. I just used my salt grinder. I took that pork belly, laid it on the cutting board and cut it up into strips just like I was going to make pork belly burn ends. And then I took it and scored it just like I was going to cut it into a burn end, but I didn't go very deep. I only went about a quarter, maybe a little more than a quarter inch. Just made a score line.
So what's the point of the scoring?
It's going to let some of that fat have a place to escape.
Okay.
And then as it cooks, it kind of opens up a little bit. So I figured it would get a little more seasoned or a little more crispy in there. When I fried it, it would kind of open up And then when I did season at the very end, it would be places to get some more seasoning. So, I mean, I could have left it in just a big chunk, but I think I got better surface area, better place for fat to render by making those score lines in it. So once I scored it, I went back and I just salted it. I took my salt grinder and just went over the top, flipped it, went over the back, kind of made sure I had some on the edges, on each little strip. Then I put it on a little raised rack that I sprayed with Pam over a lined baking sheet. And I just set that whole thing on the pit, like 275. I used a pellet grill. You could use whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
But my thinking on the pellet grills, it's moving so much air, it's going to help that fat as it renders get dry. So it might be a little crispier on there because of the airflow in that pit.
It won't be as moist.
It won't be as moist because you don't want a lot of moisture on it. Even though it's not water moisture, it's moisture coming out of the meats, fat renderings, all that. So that's not really going to mess your grease up too much anyway. But you could like paper towel it off at that point. And so what I did, I checked it at about 2 hours. It was looking good. It turned golden brown, a lot like, hog skin does that you just put on a pit that we don't do anything to.
It was a light.
You start getting that light tan, golden kind of color. And I wanted it, some of the pieces, like one of them I cut kind of thin, so it kind of went to like 180. It was a little hotter than I thought it would be. But the other ones some of them were like 165, some of them were like 170. So I said, 30 minutes, it's probably going to be where I want it. Because like I said, I didn't know. I've never done this. But I knew that, fat starts rendering at that point. When it gets up to about 180,
So that's your goal?
Yeah, 180-ish. And then I took it off the pit. By the time I fired up my grease, and I had peanut oil in a deep fryer.
Why peanut oil?
I just like the flavor of
Me
peanut
too.
oil. I think it gets things, when you're frying in it, it doesn't burn as fast. It has a higher smoke point. It gives you really good flavor on stuff. And,
much better flavor, I think.
I just buy the big jug at Sam's.
It ain't cheap.
No, it's not cheap, but I get a lot of cooks out of it, especially if you kind of watch what you put in it. But so once that oil got to about 350, I didn't want it you don't want it 400. You're not trying to fry French fries. You want just a good slow fry on it. So about 350 is hot enough. And I think when they really do chicharrones, they keep that second fry more like 325. It's lower because they're not just trying to flash hard fry it right fast. Because a lot of times there's still some lean meat, and you want to get it soft. You want it soft but crunchy, if that makes sense. You want the lean part of that belly. You want it to be melted in your mouth. You don't want it to be real chewy. So it needs to go up a little bit, but it doesn't need to go to like 200, like shreddable. It'd be too. It'd probably fall apart, I guess. I don't know. I've never done it that far. Might be a way to experiment with it. Maybe somebody else could try it, take it up a little further. But
I don't know. I thought it was perfect texture.
Yeah. But all I did was take those strips, and in my basket, I could get 2 strips at a time in each basket. So I dropped them, and I just started watching them, and they're kind of floating around, and I'm trying to make sure they get even cooked, but no matter how I flipped it, they flipped right back over. So you just got to play with it. It only takes 2 to 3 minutes, but whenever I do something fried that I want really crispy, I do a double fry. I mean, it's classic French fry technique. You fry them once, take them out. A lot of times that's at a lower temp. You fry them out, then you blast them at the end to get them really crispy. It browns them up. It gets them really crispy. It does this for pork
that
belly.
Work? Like, how does that process work? Why is the double fry effect?
I don't know. I never looked at the research of why to do it. I just know, like, when they're doing a double fry on fries, a lot of times it's because they're using a slower fry to get the frozen French fry done, or the potato done.
Yeah.
And then they take it out, let it cool down just a little bit, and then you fry it at a little bit higher temperature fast, and it just crisp up the outside. You're not cooking the inside of it anymore. And so that was kind of the technique I was doing, except I didn't adjust my temperatures. I let it go. I turned my gas down to where it just hang around 350. But it's so fast that I don't think it would really matter if that oil would have been 375, 400 at that point. I didn't want it. I did notice that the longer you leave it in there, the darker it's going to get on you. So that was one reason why I was like, well, I'll double fry them, because they're starting to get a little browner than I want. So I took them out and just let them sit there and strain a little bit. I moved them over to this, moved them back to the rack and fried my other round because it wasn't too much for one fry. And then at the end, I just kind of put some in one basket and some in the other and double fried all of them at the same time. And they were only down for maybe a minute and a half. I don't even think it was 2 minutes. But 2 minutes would be plenty long enough. But you just really want to crisp up that outside. And then when you take them out and they still got some of that hot grease popping on them and they're crackling, that's when you season them. So what I did was I just kind of had some gloves on, picked them up, seasoned them with gringo on all sides, and put them back on that rack. Then let them cool off a little bit because these jokers are hot. I don't know what internal temperature, but I would guess they are they're probably close to 200 at that point internal. I didn't temp them, but
You had the gloves on that you used to pull pork and
Oh,
work
yeah.
with hot meats and
oh yeah, my blisters on my thumbs. That wasn't even from that. That was from pulled pork. They finally healed up. But you take those to the cutting board, and then you've got this strip.
and it's
Chicharron.
curled a
Yeah,
little.
it curls up. You got the score
almost
marks
looks like
in
a-
it, and it's
corn rib.
crunchy, man. So what I've seen, like people just take it and dunk it in some avocado, guacamole or something like that. But I was like, man, why not make a taco with it? Take that dude and just slice it. I mean, really don't slice it. You kind of
You
rough
just
chop
chop
it.
it.
Yeah, just kind of hit it with your knife. You don't want it in, like, if you're going to put it on taco, you don't want big chunks. Now, you could go ahead and cube it and just make these little bitty crispy burnt.
I would-
They're not burnt. They're not pork belly burnt ends at that point.
You just pop them in your mouth and
Chicharroni plugs or something. I don't even know what you call it. I need to come up with a name for that.
chicharron.
Those were fantastic. Like you can do pork belly burnt ends that way. Just cube them, season them with salt,
Yeah.
render them, and then fry them. And you've got probably the best crack. And if you season with Cajun season, all of a sudden you got some crackling nuggies. But then you could season them with whatever seasoning you want. You could put barbecue rub on them. You could toss them in a sauce. Oh man, I see
Inlet.
endless possibilities for how these things would be good. And there is no way that these things are good for you at all. It is so much crispy fat. Then you got the oil, and you got all the seasoning. And,
When you pop them in your mouth,
it's an indulgence.
Yeah.
By all means, an indulgence.
you get it crisp. It's crispy on the outside like a French.
Mhm.
And then it's a perfect French fry is a great way to describe
Yeah.
it, like a thicker fry because it's crispy on the outside and then soft on the inside,
It reminds
But
me of,
all fat.
it doesn't have bacon flavor because it hadn't been cured.
Mhm.
But if you ever get that thin bacon that's got a lot of fat on it, and then it's they cook it really crispy,
My favorite
and
part
it
of the
melts
bacon.
it just kind of melts it. The crispy part melts in your mouth, and then you got the lean part to chew. It has that texture in a cube, or that was one. I didn't even plan to do that. I didn't have that recipe on my list to do. I had just been looking at, I'd researched stuff, looking at, ideas to cook for Cinco de Mayo. And I'd already had those ribs that I'd wanted, the birria ribs, however you say it. I can't never say
Which
it
those
right.
are fire too.
Yeah, but I really don't need this chicharron recipe for that, but I still want to cook it because it sounds, and I was watching all these techniques on how people did it. And I was like, well, I can't find anybody doing it on a smoker that way, the way I was thinking about doing it. And so, I said, I'm just going to try it. We're going to record it. If it turns out, it turns out. And it was fire. It really was. It was that good. I don't know if you could tell in the video how good it was when I tried it, but I was blown away by how good that stuff was. And we had them. We put them in a
cubed them
Ziploc
up.
bag, cubed them up, put them in a Ziploc bag, and man, we ate on those things for a week. They were just as good cold out of the refrigerator.
You would pull that bag out, open the bag, and pop one of them in your mouth, and it was still crispy.
Still crispy.
and it was
yeah.
still tender,
Yep.
even
And
though it's cold.
it was good. I'm a fan.
And you can really taste something when it gets cold, especially fried foods. It was so good.
I'm gonna
Like
tell
it
you,
wasn't, it didn't have that bad fry flavor.
you heard it directly from me. These things are better than pork belly burnt ends.
I agree.
Way better.
I agree.
Way better.
Would you toss them in a wing sauce?
Yeah, absolutely, you could. There's no reason.
You made a taco with it.
I made a taco. And it was just a simple taco. Warmed up some flour tortillas. You could use corn. A little smear of the guacamole. Couple strips, 3 or 4 strips of the chicharron, and then a little just red salsa over the top. And simple.
Lime juice and
Yeah, a little lime juice.
tapatilla.
Is that what I used? Or Valentina? maybe?
Valentina. Yeah.
Yeah. You could put whatever you wanted on them, but they were, man, absolutely. If you got pork belly at your store, grab it and go home and try that. You could do it. I mean, you don't have to have a deep fryer to do it. You could fry it in like a Dutch oven or something. Just put some oil and anything you can fry in, you can do it.
I mean, you can find one of those tabletop basket fryers at
Cheap.
Walmart.
Fry Daddy.
$30-$40.
Cut them into smaller pieces if you don't have a basket big enough to do the strip. But just trust me. Render that fat, drop it in some hot oil, then season it and try it. Tell me if I'm wrong.
It's pretty simple.
It's very simple. You told me to write the recipe. I said, what recipe? It's pork belly, salt, render, fry, season.
That's pretty much it.
There's no recipe for that.
And everybody always asks how do you get crispy pork belly? How do you smoke it?
Absolutely. You could do it this way.
Have you ever gotten crispy skin on a hog?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Same way.
And it's good too. I mean, the Outlaw is the one that we've been getting the crispy skin on because what it does, we got the coals where we can put it up under it now in these hog pits. And so it's rendering out that skin, and that skin that we cook it meat up, so the hog's not flipped the whole time. So that skin is just making a crispy bowl. And when you take it off, it's like brittle. Like you could chew it like a chip. Not all of it. Some of it's still soggy or whatever. But where it's really good, where the heat's been right and it's rendered right and all that, meat's let go of the skin and the fat's rendered down, it gets crispy underneath it. And we oil and salt the skin. So
where'd you get that fryer?
Bayou Classic. It's a Bayou Classic. We had some of them, and we brought a few into sale at the shop.
I think we still have some.
But they're actually a Mississippi company, but you can order it online. So I had one of the cast iron or steel ones. It's like RV work, Cajun RV works, I think. And I had that for years. It's a fantastic fryer, but it gets messy and it takes it a minute to heat up. This Bayou Classic one's all stainless. It's lighter weight, and it seems like it heats up faster, and it doesn't get as nasty. Like, just greasy. You had to clean it as much, but I like both of them are both of them are fine. If you got a smoker and a grill, you got to have a deep fryer outside, right?
Yeah, y'all use that deep fryer for catfish, pork rinds, homemade pork rinds.
They're so good. If you hadn't tried those, that's another one. Go to American Skins and buy you some. I don't know any other place that sells them, but it's pork rind pellets, and they're old fashioned. Like they have a website, but you can't order from the website. You actually got to call the lady at the office, give them your credit card, and they ship them to you. I think I get them in like a 25-pound box. It's enough pork rinds to feed an army.
It shows up in this big greasy box.
It's a box with a clear plastic bag of pork rind pellets,
and they're like hard. How would you describe it?
Dehydrated pork skin. That's all it is, and it's still greasy because I guess that's another one. They kind of do them like chicharrones. You know that they boil them to get all the meat off and to get them tender, and then they usually cut them in strips and then dehydrate them to dry them out. And that's why it becomes like, they're not putting them in grease and frying them any because that would pop them, but they're getting all the moisture out to where it's just really just a little plug of dehydrated skin. And I don't guess it's fat really. I think it's just skin is what they do.
You've never done a video on that.
I've never how to fry them. I don't know how to do. I've never done that.
No, I'm talking about just
how to make them.
Yeah, just getting the pellets and turning them into fresh.
You could do it.
Rinds.
So I think you could do it with cracklings, similar to that, by buying the skin on pork belly, and that's what makes that little tough part on that crackling. That's what they use. They cut pork belly into those and boil them down and then dehydrate them or start frying them, and it gets hard and crunchy. I guess I've never watched how they did that actually. I've done it with just like pieces of pork rendered down. I didn't even dehydrate or boil it.
Yeah, we did it on the stovetop.
Just put it on low heat.
Like we're boiling noodles.
Yeah, for real. It starts cooking out, the fat starts rendering, so whatever renders there is what fries what's remaining, and they get crunchy. But they don't pop. Like, you don't get that like pork rind. It's more of a crackling. It's meat, fat, and hardness. But it's good. I like chewing on them.
It didn't have the same flavor. Like, it's okay.
No, it's not like the chicharron.
No.
The chicharron is way better.
This week you cooked old school barbecue chicken.
Man, that was a fun recipe to do because it was just grilling some chicken. When I think it now, of course, we didn't have Primo grills growing up or anything like that. The grills my dad or, my uncles and everybody cooked on when we had barbecues, most of them were like homemade grills. You may see a Weber back in the day, maybe an old PK, but most of the time when it come to cooking like a large family picnic, is basically what we were having, they would just be like 50-gallon drums. Yeah. Somebody done turned into a grill. They might have a side smoke box if they were trying to do some smoking, but most of them just homemade things. And that's
all I remember.
And they cooked the best barbecue. Or to me, I fell in love with it like that. It wasn't, we weren't smoking. They weren't smoking whole hogs and pulled pork and stuff like that. It was mainly ribs, chicken. They always had burgers and dogs for the kids, but that's just what it was. And there was just this old school chicken where they would just take pieces of cut up chicken, put it on the side of the grill, cook it low at first until they got it,
Mopping it the whole time.
mopping it the whole time. And then when it started looking done, they'd put it over on the hot side and kind of char it up and keep basting it with sauce. And it was real sticky and it was always kind of sweet, but it'd be a little spicy. That was what I was going for. And
I remember you brought your plate to the grill.
Yeah, and got it off.
and they would hand it to you.
That's right. It didn't get panned up. They weren't spending money on all these aluminum pans and full that we use. My mom and dad go crazy when they see me cook a contest or something. It's like, you use so much aluminum foil. That stuff's expensive. I was like, man, what did aluminum foil cost back in the day? Because I could dare
And
shoot
the
a
pans. My grandma's
wash the pans.
Yeah, my grandma will lay the aluminum foil flat and like
Protect the
store
aluminum
it.
pan. Yeah. Oh, my mom, she'll recycle it too. They'll have aluminum pan over they've done washed off and drying, and then the pans, like every pan that I use when we barbecue at their house or they're around, she wants to wash them. I can't stand when we throw them away. I'm like, that costs 15 cents. It's okay. It's meant to be disposable, but that's how it was. But I mean, I guess things were different back then. They learned to conserve more, and this was just chicken's cheap. You can go buy 8 pieces of chicken. I mean, it's probably one of the cheapest things you can buy to cook on a grill, but man, it's delicious. I'm telling you. Even just leg quarters. We had a lot of leg quarters growing up.
Yeah,
that's what I always remember.
Or quarters where it's the thigh and the leg.
Yeah,
Chicken quarters, I guess. Yeah,
chicken leg quarters.
My dad he had a recipe where he would boil the chicken leg quarters in like a crawfish bowl, like the Louisiana concentrate stuff.
Right.
So he'd boil the chicken in that, kind of parboil it, and then he'd grill it. And I guess that was the idea, was to render the fat.
That's right. I mean, it's a really good technique to get the chicken skin good because you're rendering all that fat out in the bowl. I mean, this is sacrilege, but my mom, I mean, their family on my mom's side, we never had a slab of ribs. They cut up ribs. They bought ribs by the case. They cut them up. They had this big pot, man. They'd parboil those ribs.
I remember.
And then
that.
And there wouldn't be man, it stunk so bad. I just remember it being foamy and coming out of it's like, ooh, that ain't good.
It was we would use like a big stock pot.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was like a big stock pot. Not quite a crawfish pot, but a big pot. And it'd just be full of these 2-bone pieces of ribs. And they'd even take the rib tips and they'd be chopped up and they'd be in there boiling. But when they got through with that, they'd strain it all. And it was the most disgusting looking thing you ever seen.
Yes.
But they'd cover a grill and all that. And they'd bring out this old mop and they'd usually have like a milk jug that had been cut where they could get the mop in it.
Oh, that's a good
And that
idea.
would be the saucer, and they were just dabbing it all over those ribs and the chicken on the grill. And by the end of the day, when they got through caramelizing sauce on them, they weren't bad. Now, it's not a smoked rib. This is like family picnic old school ribs.
I'd like to try one of those now, considering all the barbecue I've had up to the, in my life.
To see what those were like?
Yeah, to see how
I couldn't tell you the last time I had a boiled rib like that.
I think of them fondly,
Yeah. I mean, I think those things you get in your head from being a kid. And that's what sets barbecue memories for me. And that's kind of what barbecue is. Because when I think about it, I think about going to the lake on 4th of July or going to Memorial Day at somebody's house and how fun it was as a kid to be there and to be around the men on the grill, and the women were always prepping the tables and the sides, and there's always delicious stuff to eat. Coolers full of drinks, and the watermelons would be iced down in the coolers and stuff. And that's just barbecue memories to me. And I mean, I guess probably why I have such a passion for it, because it was always fun, and family and friends. But I loved it. And I mean, I ain't saying those ribs will win any contest or anything, but they'd eat. The chicken was always good.
Yeah,
chicken
was always good.
My dad's side of the family would actually cook slabs of ribs.
Would they smoke them or
my papa
boil
would?
Yeah,
he would. He liked to smoke. And they had
what
like
kind
an
of
old
cooker do you
It was
have?
like an old bullet. It wasn't a Weber Smoky Mountain. I don't even know if that model was out back then, but it was some kind of bullet shaped
My dad had
Masterbuilt or something, and had these little metal water pans that would go in it. That's how, that's probably where I got my first slabs of ribs from that. And they were always pretty good, but they weren't like my papa didn't use a barbecue seasoning. He would just season salt and pepper and add a few things to it, and that's all he put on them. So it was more of a classic. I wouldn't say it's Texas styles. It wasn't heavy pepper, but it was just a seasoned smoked pork.
Did they have a
He had a bunch
commercial?
of sauce on it. He always used Mall's sauce. You remember Mall's?
Uh-uh.
It was I guess it's an old brand. I don't even know if Mall's is still around.
never
but
heard
that
of
was the sauce
Mall's.
he always used. It probably used it because it was always on sale. It
Yeah,
was like one of
yeah.
those 75 cents a bottle sauces back in the day.
We always had Bullseye.
I remember Bullseye. Kraft barbecue sauce. Like
Kraft
this time
was
of
real
year,
big, yeah.
they would put those sauces on sale. I remember as a kid, the sauce would go on sale. That's what you ate. You didn't get your favorite. You got whatever was on sale. And so there'd be a ton of that Kraft or
And that was before Sweet
KC
Baby Ray's.
Masterpiece,
Yeah.
those type sauces that you just found at the grocery store.
Oh, KC Masterpiece is the worst.
Yeah. Bullseye
had-
wasn't bad.
No, Bullseye's not
And
bad.
Malls, I guess I like Malls. It was kind of vinegary.
Was there a commercially available barbecue rub back in the day?
I don't really
one.
remember one. I remember them using a lot of Lowry's seasoned salt.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Corky's was around, and I mean, because we're in the Memphis area, so
Yeah,
we had
we
some
didn't have
Corky's
that.
and we had some. You'd see Rendezvous, but I always associated the Rendezvous rub with like sausage and cheese plate. So whenever I got old enough to where we started having get-togethers, late high school, college, and stuff like that, we'd start making sausage and cheese plates because we had them at Rendezvous, and it's
Easy.
for people that ain't got no money. You can buy some smoked sausage and cheese and crackers.
And everybody loves it.
Yeah, and everybody loves it. It is good. But that chicken recipe is fire. I mean, and you could do it on any grill. I mean, the Primo, I had it set up to where I had all my lump hot coals on one side, and then in the other side, I call it my cool zone. That's the 2-zone fire. That's where I had my diverter and my cooking grate. So they were never over any direct heat on that side. So I took that chicken and I made me a brine.
So is brining important? How important is brining for this recipe?
I think that's how you keep that chicken juicy. And it's a great way to put flavor inside it, especially if you got plenty of time. And when the chicken's cut up, it don't take but about 4 or 6 hours. You don't have to. It's not like you have to give it a 24-hour brine.
You said 2 in the video.
Well, I mean, at least I would say at least 2.
2.
I remember you had me write the recipe yesterday before we released it just to get it down, and I was thinking it really 4 to 6 is optimal. I probably 2 would work, but if you could go 4 to 6, it would probably be better.
Could you go overnight?
Yeah, you could definitely go longer, but since it's cut up, it does it's got more ways for that to get in. It's a smaller piece that way, and so it can soak up further. But that was a big chicken. And at Jaws, in my grocery store, I didn't cut that chicken up. They sell a cut up chicken at Kroger.
What was the price point on that? Do you remember?
I was like $8.
For the whole pack?
Yeah, it's not it's
okay.
not much. I mean, a whole chicken's usually about $6 or $7,
Yeah.
so they probably charge you $1 to cut it up. And then they keep
That seems
actually the neck and back, they just had it all in there. Oh, you could tell they just took a whole chicken in the back and cut it up and put it on a tray and then put the wrap over
I
it.
did see somebody say, "Where was the neck in the bag?"
It was I threw it. It was there. I just tossed it in the garbage. But I started with that, and
And you used so you used Wickers in your brine.
yeah,
Your brine was
that's
lemon.
now that's an old school marinade. When my parents started marinating stuff, it was always in Wickers.
So
I don't know how long Wickers has been around, but if you don't know about Wickers, it's basically water,
local
vinegar,
thing?
and spices. I don't know if I really don't know where they're from, honestly. But it's always been in our grocery stores, and it was always like the base for any marinade. When you talk barbecue, people most of the time had a bottle of Wickers
Yeah.
because you could use it as a mop too.
It
While
says
stuff's
it's a
grilling.
steak marinade, but
I've heard of people use it. I've never used it on beef, but I don't see why you couldn't. Because all it is like it's basically like when I do the Italian dressing mop.
Mhm.
Where it's a bottle of zesty Italian dressing, and then we put a little Worcestershire and a little soy and a little rub in it. So Wickers is kind of like that without the oil. There's no oil in it. So it's water, vinegar, and spices. That's all it is. Salt, a lot of salt in it. So it's really good for mopping. And I think when you add a little lemon citrus to it, it's good. And then and then what I did was I took 2 cups of water, and then I've added some bird brine and some Killer Hogs Hot. And so I made me a barbecue kind of brine. And squeezed some fresh lemons in there, put the chicken in one of the big meat bags, poured all that over it, got the air out, and stuck it in the fridge for a couple hours.
a lot of people were asking where you got that big old bag.
You can get that. You can get that from us, HowToBBQRight.com for that big one. It's like a super strength zip top bag. It's great for like taking meat to a contest or brine. I usually use them at
We use 'em-
Thanksgiving for
Yeah,
turkey brine.
turkeys. We use them for coleslaw.
Coleslaw, we use them for everything. Yeah, we got them. We call them meat bags.
But if you're looking for something comparable, they're Ziploc. Do they still make those?
I hadn't seen those in a long time. That's what gave me the idea for those because I always used them, and you could find them like in the laundry storage section.
Mm-hmm.
They would
They
have
weren't
these
in
big
Zip-
Ziploc
yeah.
XXLs, they called them. They were in a little blue flat box, and usually it was 2 or 3 of them in that box. But I haven't seen those in a real long time. And so I got to thinking, man, well, I need these for contests because I use them for contests. It's a way to keep your meat when you're prepping your meat ahead of time, sticking in the cooler. It's great. And that's what we started using them for. And so I found a company that would sell me these industrial strength zip top bags, and that's what we just said. We'll call them meat bags. But they do make I don't know if I think it's Hefty makes a slider top that's a 2.5 gallon. You can find those in they're usually with the aluminum foil and stuff like that. Some grocery stores have them.
Walmart
has
does. Kroger doesn't.
They're not as big, but they work pretty good. The only thing don't trust that zipper closure on the top. It will fail on you pretty easy. So always drop it in a pan or a bowl or cinch it up and zip tie it. I've done that before. Whatever you can to keep it from spilling. Just know those will leak on you. Usually the Ziploc brand, they're not as bad to leak. But I always put, like when I put that chicken in the refrigerator in the brine, I always drop it either in a pan or a big bowl or a tray or something, because you never know when a bone might poke the bag or something in there and it might get a hole, and you don't want it to leak all over your refrigerator. You'd be cleaning up a pretty big mess then.
Also, we did a burger video where the concept wasn't a recipe. It was just about the techniques of making
tips and techniques on how to make you the Burger King. So anytime, like when I'm making burgers at home, I like to use ground beef. I don't like to use the pre-patted stuff. I mean, pre-patted stuff's okay if you're in a hurry and don't want to mess with it. But it's so easy. You can go on Amazon and buy you a little burger press. They're $15 or cheaper. You can buy some really good ground beef. Or if you like to really play with your different flavors, you can buy a ground sirloin, or you can buy a ground chuck, and you can combine them and get the ratio right. Or you can just go buy the cheap 70-30 stuff or whatever, 80-20. But I like to mix it because I like to put different stuff in my burgers. So it really works, and it makes a better burger if you do it yourself and you don't overpack it. That was my tips for making a better burger. Is first, you want to add a tablespoon of Blue Plate to the burger first, because it adds a richness. You never know it's in there, but it adds some extra fat, a little bit extra oil in that burger, and when it cooks, it stays juicy. I mean, it doesn't change the flavor at all, but it really makes a juicy burger. And to me, it helps it stick together too. It's kind of acts as a little bit of a binder.
Can you tell a difference in burgers that you add mayonnaise to?
Yeah. It doesn't change the texture. It just adds, to me, it's juicier. And so I always add 1 tablespoon per pound, but I always get me a little kitchen scale and weigh out my burger meat. Whatever you do, because you want them equal, because they're going to cook the same. Everything's going to look uniform. You're not going to end up with these little hockey pucks and then a big old juicy burger. You want to weigh it out and get the proportions the same. And then use your burger
What's
press.
your weight?
I like a 1/3 pound burger, a 1/2 pound. If I'm wanting to make, like, you're only going to eat one burger and that's your main thing you're eating for that dinner, like a dinner burger, it's going to be a 1/2 pounder. But if I'm just making, pool burgers, hanging out in the backyard, got kids, usually going to stick to the 1/3 pound. 1/4 pound's a little too small for me.
I don't like the 1/2 pounds. I think it's too much.
Too
meat
much.
Too.
I like almost like a steak burger on a bun. That's how I like them. But usually that's what I do. And I'll use my burger press, and to keep that burger press clean, I'll take a Ziploc bag, take some scissors, and just split it. That way it goes in the press. You put your ball of burger meat that you didn't really work too much in the center, and you press it down. It makes the perfect patty. You take it out, put it on a plate. Everything's clean. Stick that plate in the refrigerator for a little bit just to firm back up while you get your grill good and hot. And I do a 2-zone fire. I want a 2-zone fire on burgers.
How important is the refrigerator?
I think it's pretty important, because if you have trouble with your burgers wanting to fall apart on you, the mayonnaise is going to help. But getting them cold again, depending on how long they've been sitting out, if you're pretty fast about it, go right to it. Go to cooking them. But if you're, I usually like to form them and then give them time to sit. And I'm not talking hours, like, 20, 30 minutes. Not long. Just to stay cool while I'm getting my grill ready, basically. Because if you leave them out at room temperature, things are going to want to start, the breaking down a little bit. They're heating up. The burger can fall apart on you. This way they stay together. You don't have to add an egg or breadcrumb. We're not making meatloaf. It's just a burger with a little mayonnaise in it. So
do you season? Because in your video you didn't actually show the seasoning process. Do you season burgers?
Yeah, I usually hit them with AP or something like that. Sometimes I'll put a little Worcestershire on the outside and hit them with AP. That's kind of up to you. Whatever you like on a burger. Steak rub's good on it. TX is good on it. Heck, I've done barbecue burgers.
Huey's seasoning.
Huey's is a good local seasoning that's good on burgers. That's kind of my standard for burgers in our area. Like, that's the mark to beat.
I hadn't had a Huey's burger in so long.
I hadn't either. It's been a while.
Anyway, so
2's on fire. And the reason why I do a 2-zone fire is so I can slow the cook down. I want to put my burger over there, and I don't want to flip it. I don't want to do anything to it. I want to get it to the cooler side of the grill to where there's not direct flames under it yet. It's just cooking. It's starting the cooking process, and you start it out slow. And you'll start seeing some of those meat juices come to the top of it. The color will start changing. It'll start firming up. The more you flip them, if you're constantly flipping that burger, you're just leaving room for it to fall apart on you. If you do it this way, it's all going to stick together. I usually put a little indention in it. Some people say you don't have to do that. I think it makes mine from becoming a meatball. It fills itself back in, but it just keeps that burger from – it gives it a way for it to not just spread all up in one place. By putting that indention in, it has to spread up evenly when it stands up.
I think that makes a difference. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, I don't care what they say.
Yeah.
But I always do that.
How long do you go on the
It's
cool
about
side?
10 to 12 minutes, something like that. I never really time it that close. I just kind of look and watch. I'm not looking for a specific internal temperature. No flipping. Just letting it sit there and cook. Could you flip it after about 8-10 minutes? You probably could flip it and you'd be okay. But I don't like to mess with it, though. So I don't want to move them too much once I get them on the grate. Once I see it's kind of set and I've kind of got that outer crust going, I'm starting to get some pretty good color. It's usually gray. It's not getting too much color on it. I've got my hot side over here. This is when I want to sear them. So I'll flip that burger then one time, let it go just like 2 minutes, and it's going to be raining grease. You've already got that puddle of grease in that little depression we've made, and it's starting to make it flame broiled. That's where you're getting your flavor from, and you want the flames to jump up and kiss it. But you're not walking away from it either. The first part, you can walk away a little bit. Get your sides ready, go toast your buns. The second part, when you got it over direct heat, don't walk away from the grill. You're going 1 to 2 minutes to get the sear action going. You're going to flip it one more time, sear that other side really good, move it back to the cool side. That's when you want to start checking your internal temperature. For me, I'm kind of a medium. If I know the burger meat, I'm medium. I don't mind some pink. I'm not eating it medium rare. I just don't eat ground meat medium rare. You probably would, wouldn't you?
Yes.
But I order mine medium. And when I go to Huey's, I order it medium. If I'm eating a fast food burger, it better be well done. I ain't chancing those.
I don't think they'd come any other way.
Yeah. But I move it back to the cool side, and that's when you can put your probe in it and check it. You're looking for 135 right in there. That's where I'm going for 140. It's going to carry over some.
What's done? 145?
145 would be well done on a steak, but I would probably if
I'm talking burger, ground meat.
Probably closer to like 160.
Oh,
that way it'd carry over to 165. And they say ground needs to go to 165. That's nuked, though.
Yeah.
It really is. But, you don't want to be burger sick. Something's going to keep you in the bathroom. That's for certain.
But you shoot for 135 to 140.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. If I know the meat.
And carryover.
Yeah, that's right. And it's going to carry over. And that's when I cheese it. And it doesn't take 30 seconds to melt a slice of cheese on it. And then it goes
What's
to the
your
burger.
cheese of choice?
I switch it up. Sometimes I'm feeling pepper jacky. Sometimes I'm feeling, Colby Jack. Sometimes I'm feeling just cheddar. Sometimes I like Kraft American singles.
Yeah.
It just depends.
The deluxe.
Yeah, the deluxe ones. Yeah. But I'm not a snob when it comes to cheese on a burger. I like it all. I even like blue cheese on them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But I go on a toasted bun. Now, everybody builds a burger the way they like it, but a classic to me is a light layer of mayo, the blue plate on the bottom bun. Give me some thin dill pickle slices, the restaurant style like I get at Kroger. They're just a generic brand, but man, they're so good on a burger.
It's hard to find them anywhere else.
Yeah, aren't they called fast food pickles or something like that?
Restaurant style pickles.
Yeah. They're not the little ridgy ones. They're smooth.
Like McDonald's. Yeah.
And then I go a little thinly sliced white onion, a little tomato, a little lettuce, burger, cheese on top, a little more mayo on that top bun, and that's it for me. I'm not a mustard. I'm not a ketchup guy. I don't have to have it. It's okay if you like it, but all you need is some good blue plate.
Somebody asked why put your toppings on the bottom.
I don't know. Why not? I think
it
as a layer. I don't want to eat them. I don't want that mama burger like Eddie Murphy used to talk about. Your fingers go through the bun, the grease is sopping. I'm thinking of it as a barrier. So I've got me some mayonnaise. I've got my pickle layer. I've got me some onion, tomato, lettuce. Then I put that hot meat on there. And then the top bun's got a little more mayo. It's okay on that one, but I don't want it to sog all the way through. Yeah. So that's why I build them like that.
I kind of like putting my lettuce on top, but everything else needs to be on the bottom. Because I feel like it falls off too easy.
I like to dress it before I put the burger on it for some reason. I'll have all that ready, and then I'll go get the hot burger and put it right on top, and it's ready to eat. You put it on there, you got to stack it up on top. I don't know. Is there a right or wrong way to build your burger?
No, it's your burger.
Yeah. Y'all send us pictures of how y'all building burgers this summer.
I've noticed here lately, you've been on a reverse sear kick.
I have.
A two's on fire.
I've been doing it a lot. Yeah. Man, I put on, you asked me to make a few notes about what 4th of July cooking ideas. And so on a long weekend like this, you got multiple opportunities to cook. So you can do a low and slow cook if you want to do a big brisket or, pork butt for pulled pork nachos or something. But there's going to be a lot of opportunity to cook burgers and dogs. And those 2-zone burgers that I've been doing, and I've been doing them on a Weber. Like I'll set my Weber up for, hot coals on one side, void on the other side, and I'll patty out my burgers. I like to mash my own. So I got me a little burger press from Amazon. I got me a little burger press from Amazon. I roll them, I divide them out into an equal ball, put them in that little press and mash them out, and then season them, and then just set them on the off side, on that indirect side, and let them come up slow. And you can usually tell when they're ready to go over to start searing, because it'll be, you'll kind of get that red, juicy. It's not blood, but it's, it's that red juice that starts coming to the top. And when that starts changing colors and coagulating a little bit, that's when they're ready to move over and sear. And you're not messing with the burger. It's not falling apart.
And you get,
but if you start that, and it doesn't get out of hand, you never get the grill out of hand that way.
And you keep it a little medium.
Yeah. That's where I want them. As long as I know where the meat, the ground came from, I'm fine eating it at medium. I'm not gonna eat it medium rare. You might do a medium rare, but that's a little too red for me in a burger. But I like it to have some pink to it. But I just think you don't so if you start that burger out when it's raw over the direct heat and the grease starts running, it starts rendering, you got to have a safe zone on a grill, because it's gonna get out of hand pretty quick. That's a lot of juice, especially when you got 6 big half-pound burgers on there. Like I make a man burger. I ain't cooking these little bitty sausage patty burgers. I'm cooking a big man burger. But I like starting them out on that cool side and then just searing them. It's only one flip each on the sear. They get a nice crust on them. When you flip them back over, throw that cheese on there, let it melt just a little bit on the cool side. I don't do that on the hot side, and you're ready to eat a burger.
And you're not over flipping them.
You're not overworking them. The meat's not packy, because when I'm pressing it, I'm just pressing it really good and hard one time and then taking it out carefully and not handling them too much anymore after that. So they're not all broken up, and it's not like eating a meatloaf or something like that. Yeah. The meat, it has texture and it's juicy goodness.
Have you ever gone to a cookout where they were cooking burgers and it's pretty much like a charcoal hockey puck?
Oh, yeah.
Not even a hockey puck.
I've choked them down before. I think we all have. It's kind of like a burn up meatball.
Yeah.
They're done.
And folks are going, these are good. These are good.
The burger out of them.
These are good.
You got to pile on the mayonnaise and ketchup for that to choke it down.
Beer can chicken sliders.
Yeah, so this past weekend, me and Shell did a few little recipes getting ready for this brewery event we're doing. And so I wanted to incorporate one of the beers that they sell at Circle and Square, which for the beer can chicken, I chose the Full Ride, which was like it's kind of a German, how do you say Kolsch? I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm not up on my German, don't get me wrong. But to me, it drinks like something you would
domestic?
Yeah, something like a lager that we have, just like, like a light beer or something like that. It's like a golden. It's real, not too hoppy, not too
If you
bitter.
go in the brewery and say what you got, that's the closest.
Yeah, closest thing to Miller Lite. They're going to probably put you on Full Ride. Yeah. They do have another beer though that's more like it's like game day beer or something like that. That's supposed to be more like an American style lager too. But that's the one I chose for that, and it's kind of just a traditional beer can chicken, except I did people
have been making beer can chicken.
Oh yeah, and I'm telling you, the beer in the can doesn't make any difference. Yeah. Now, what I did, because you don't just do a full can of beer, and I've always took about half out or at least a quarter. And usually I just drink it, which I did the video, but I had another one, and so I poured me some out. And once I got the chicken, I dry the skin really good. Once you open the chicken, always check the cavity, see they've got, other parts in there. That's a lot of times you'll find some, the gizzards or the liver or something like that, maybe the neck. Pull all that out, dry the skin off really good, If you want to wash it, hey, get you a Scrub Daddy and some Dawn and do like they do on them videos. I don't recommend it, but I'm not soap washing my chicken. You do you. But I usually just take paper towel and pat it dry.
You let that one hang out for.
Oh, I put it in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
So I put it raw on the rack and stuck it in the fridge. So it would sit there and air could get all around it. It's really a great way to dry a chicken.
Yeah, even if you're not going to
even if you're not,
if
it's
draining out too.
Everything's getting away from it. All that moisture's getting off of it. It's going to make it cook more even. Your skin's going to be better. And so once I got it like that, I took it off the rack and put it on the cutting board. Sprayed it with some cooking spray. You could use oil. You could use whatever you want, but you need a fat, some kind of a liquid fat to go on it, and that kind of gives you a coating for the skin to help it brown up, help it get a little crispy. But it also helps your seasoning stick. And then I just simple hot rub, all sides, got it over.
Do you ever put it in the cavity? Your seasoning.
Sometimes,
in the cavity?
yeah. Like if I'm doing a turkey or something like that. I mean, chicken, I have done it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it makes that much difference. But I knew I was putting it on that can in the rack, so it wasn't gonna be too big. I've even taken the can, and this one I just had half a beer, stuck it down in there, and put the chicken on it. But I've taken it like take a knife or a can, of old school can opener. Bend the top down some and then season, put lemon. You can put whatever you wanted in that can too. I don't know if it makes any, I don't think it makes any difference, whatever you put in there. But I got it on the rack, and then you always got to redoctor it up a little bit because you had to pick it up and set it on there. But what I did to get some of that beer flavor inside the chicken, now it doesn't have, it's going to cook the alcohol out. Don't worry about that. But I injected it. I just took a basic like turkey injector needle, shot the legs, the thighs, shot the breast up, shot some up in the wings, and then threw it on the pit. And I ran it like 325 on the Mammoth.
So do you think that injecting the beer does anything?
It keeps it juicy, and you get some of that flavor in. So if you definitely want to put some more flavor in something, so especially something neutral like a chicken or something like that, or turkey, it works really great because you're going to get some of those flavors from it. And you can play around with it. You don't have to use the exact same beer I did. That's just what we had local. I mean, I was,
well, you're trying to support your local
supporting
brewery.
my local brewery. But if you got a favorite one that you want to use, do that. If you just don't want to do the beer, use chicken broth. You could use a can of water. You could use whatever you wanted to put in there. You could probably use apple juice, whatever you wanted. I've
seen people use Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, I've seen Sprite, anything. You could use whatever you wanted. But that's just a good way to get some flavor from the injection inside the chicken. So once I did that, it was ready to go in the pit. I fired up that Grill of Mammoth.
What do you think about that Grill of Mammoth?
Oh, it's a cooking machine, dude. It holds temp really good. It probably does. It'll probably hold temp way better if it was full, like slap full of meat, but not slap full, but taking up some mass in there. 'Cause I just had one chicken in it.
Because it has a lot of cooking.
Oh, it's got a ton of room in it. Room in it. And I didn't even run any water in the water pan. I just dialed it to 325. I want to get hot heat moving. And the way those cabinet smokers work, they're usually hotter. If you get the water pan in there, it's going to be cooler towards the water pan. But as you get up at top of the cabinet where the heat's really coming up, that's where it's hotter. So you've got these zones in it. So I don't get caught up like you see a lot of people with pellet grills. It's like, oh man, I got it set on this one temp. Well, it went up 15, 20 degrees higher. It went lower. I wanted that swing as long as I know it's steady at about 325 where I got it set. I wanted it around there. I didn't want it super low. I didn't want it 450. I wanted it around 325. And I think it took almost 2 hours. I mean, so this one, you could have used any kind of probe thermometer you have, but the Mammoth has 2 probes that it comes with. Like probe 1, probe 2.
And they work
and they work really well because I verified it with one of my dots just to be sure.
Yeah.
But I put that probe in there, hooked it up to the little panel on top, had it set for 325, and just forgot about it for 2 hours. And when it started going off, I checked it just to make sure, stuck that probe like in the thickest part of the breast.
What temp are you looking for?
160. So, chicken's done at 165 recommended. And we'll talk about this in a minute because I heard you heard something about them lowering it, didn't you?
Yeah,
but
I had a whole discussion at Grand Rapids with the whole thing that came up is they were saying they take theirs off at 155.
Yeah. I can see it. I believe it would carry over. I believe it would if you gave it time. I wholeheartedly believe it would. But I stopped this one at 160 and just let it sit on the cutting board. I had it in a pan and I cooked it. So I did do this. I had like the little, I think those are called third pans. It's not a full half sheet pan. It's like a little a quarter sheet pan maybe.
It is.
But I put full on it, and the little chicken rack sits in it perfect, and it doesn't block too much airflow because it's a smaller pan. But it catches a lot of those drippings, so it keeps your smoker cleaner. and it makes picking that chicken up, spinning it, moving it around so much easier. So I just pulled that pan out and set it on the counter and the cutting board and let it sit there for 20, 25 minutes till it cooled off. It gave it time to carry over, which it went to like 168, something like that. It went a little hotter than I probably wanted it to. And then it dropped back down and it was ready to pull. So that part was super easy. I mean, cooking a beer can chicken, it doesn't get any easier. And then when we were doing sliders with this, because that's some of the samples we're going to be giving away. So we found these, it's like a version of King's Hawaiian sliders. It's not King's brand. I think
It was just called
Lose. I don't remember Lose is.
It was just a slider roll.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to have to. Well, we don't want to have to cut a bunch of Hawaiian rolls in half. That's the bad thing about those Hawaiian rolls. They make great sliders, but you got to take the time to cut them.
I think by now they would say, well, you know what? We need to half these and sell them just for sliders.
Yeah.
Because it would be, so many people use them for that. But these little rolls work perfect. I think there's a dozen in the bag. It's a perfect,
It's a slider roll. Yeah.
It's a little bit bigger than a King's Hawaiian roll, but smaller than a small hamburger bun. So it's right. It's the perfect size to do a slider with. And I took that chicken, pulled it apart by, kind of broke the leg quarters off, disjointed the legs and thighs. I mixed a little skin in with it, but honestly, me and you ate most of that skin.
It was good and
it was,
crispy.
Yeah, because it gets crispy and it's got all that seasoning on it. That's really where your seasoning is.
And when you cook a chicken like just regular, like on its back or whatever, it doesn't get as crispy on the bottoms and stuff. But on that rack,
when you vertical cook
crispy,
it gets even the back skin's good. And so once I got it pulled apart, I mixed a little bit of that skin back with it, and I always like to reseason it a little. I don't know if I showed that on the video, but I'll hit it with some more rub and toss it with it. And that way you get some more flavor all through it.
When it's hot and juicy,
it's a perfect time.
It melts that seasoning.
Yep.
You don't end up with like crystally.
Whenever I'm serving like pulled chicken or pulled pork or anything like that, I'm always reseasoning it once I get it pulled. I taste it, and then I'm like, let's bump it up and get it to where somebody tastes this, and they're like, we don't even need sauce. It's just so good.
Yeah.
And then, so I took the little slider roll, opened it up, put a good amount of the pulled chicken on the roll, drizzled it with some of my Mississippi white sauce, put a couple spicy, sweet and spicy kind of garlic pickles on top. And that's all it was. Super simple, but man, it was a good bite. Really, really good bite.
Fat boy snack.
Yeah, those were. I mean, the bad thing is you can eat 6, 7 of them.
It would be perfect for tailgates.
Oh,
football parties.
And one chicken, I bet you I could have got 2 packs of those sliders. So it probably would have made 24 little sliders.
I agree.
Off one chicken. Yeah. I don't know. That chicken was a bigger one. Like I think you picked out the biggest one that Kroger had.
It wasn't the biggest. It was the most non-juicy.
Yeah, packed up. Yeah.
Tight packed.
Yeah. But it was probably 4.5 pounds. It probably yields somewhere between 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds of meat once it was pulled. Because I didn't waste much. I mean, I got it all off the bones. I even get the meat off the back. That's why when I cook a vertical, man, it's easy to get those little tender, those little oysters out of the back, and then any meat that's up there, you can get it out real easy. And then the wings, I think I ate.
Yeah, we ate the wings.
Ate a flat.
Those are what Pitmaster snack.
Yeah,
Camera lady.
Pull the
snack.
flats off, and that's what we snack on.
But
it was good. That was a really, really good. And that. Did you put the recipe out yet for it? Because I wrote it the other day.
No, not yet. It'll go. Yeah, it's out now.
It's out now. But yeah, we're recording this a day early.
Mark, you recently got a new outdoor cooking apparatus.
It's apparatus, all right.
It's not a smoker or grill. What'd you get, a pizza cooker?
I bought a pizza oven. And we talk about... What?
What?
I was trying to get him subliminally ready to cook some pizzas for us.
Oh,
bring it up here.
Cook it up here at lunch. So me and Jay with Outlaw have a running joke that I make him spend a lot of money. Well, it goes both ways.
Yeah, we just bought a $500 coffee maker.
Yeah, thanks.
It goes both ways. Yeah.
But Jay makes me spend a lot of money too because Jay got the pizza oven first. So he called me he sent me a video. He's like, look at this. And I was like, I've been wanting a pizza oven for a while. And he bought I can't pronounce it right.
Umi?
No. Crap. I got to look
Google it.
Google it. I always forget the brand. Anyways, he bought the big one. And bear with me.
Which one did you buy?
I bought the portable one. So it is
Is it the same brand?
Yeah, Gozney pizza ovens.
Spell that for me.
Gozney. So Jay bought a Gosney Dome, which is like their big dog. I want to say it's like $2,000 or it's pretty pricey.
I think he was planning on cooking a bunch of pizza,
Yeah.
isn't he?
It's a stout. It's a heck of a pizza oven. I was like, man, the thing about a pizza oven is it's only good to cook a pizza in. That was my train of thought. I was like, we cook pizzas a couple of times a year. I don't want to spend that kind of money. So I bought the Rock Box, which is made by Gosney, but it's their portable travel one. It's like $450 or something. It's
That's
not bad. So I bought it. Jay had the big one. I brought it home, fired it up. It'll go to 900 degrees like instantly. Like it's pretty dang quick.
It's not wood fired.
No, it's gas. You
propane, right?
And so we started toying with pizzas. And let me tell you, those pizzas are phenomenal. Like I've cooked a good pizza on a pellet grill before. Like a really.
You had the shells and you were doing them on the grilla, and they were good.
They were good, but man, it's something about you throw it in there and that old dough blows all up, and you get all those. What do they call them? They got a name for it. Leopard spotting or something. When it does all that, God,
is that the little bubbles and stuff that's on it? Yeah.
But
so you got a good pizza crust when you.
So have you got into making the crust too?
Oh, I'm not gonna get into that. I buy the dough balls.
Yeah.
And I found some really, really good dough balls here locally. And we tried a bunch of different ones. And you think a dough ball is a dough ball, and it's not. Like we've had 3 different ones here locally, and all 3 of them are completely different. They cook different. They taste different. They're all good, but there's a art to that too. And I don't have no idea. There's people that get all into the moisture content and all that. We're just cooking pizza. But I started doing pizzas on it, and then I was like, man, let's try something different. So I've done tuna steaks. I've done fillets. I've done cookie dough pizza that was delicious with Oreos and chocolate chip cookies. That was outstanding.
When you're cooking like fish or steak or something on there, do you put it on something?
I put it on the little thin cast iron skillet that doesn't have sides.
Yeah.
It's like a
fajita
like a fajita skillet.
Yeah.
I put it in there and preheat the skillet, and then I slide it out and I put my fish, tuna, whatever on it, put it back in there, and it sears it. I flip it once, sear it, and it'll cook tuna in just 45, 50 seconds.
I bet it would do scallops and shrimp.
Oh, I guarantee it.
Really good.
One of the best things is that darn bread cheese. That bread cheese y'all done the recipe on. You take that bread cheese and put it in a cast iron skillet and put it in there, and you can put toppings on it. Oh my goodness.
Does it melt?
No, but it gets real light. It almost like it puffs up, and I guess it gets almost melty on the inside, and it kind of puffs up like a marshmallow, but it's good.
How do you eat it? With crackers or bread?
I'll eat it with a spoon.
Whatever you can get in.
Whatever device you got to get it to your mouth.
Just my mouth. That's all I need.
But we've enjoyed it, man. It's been fun, and we're probably going to cook some this weekend. I hadn't cooked one in a couple of weeks, but we'll do that. And then like when we buy the dough balls, I'll get a dough ball and don't stretch it out. Just kind of like barely kind of flatten it out, kind of puff it up and pour olive oil on it and put the whole dough ball in there and puff it up. It's good bread. I mean,
so it makes like a Italian loaf almost or something like that.
What they call it? A
focaccia?
Focaccia.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we'll put olive oil and basil and all that on top of it and throw it in there, and it's good.
And if you buy the dough balls, it makes it so much, it's so easy.
Yeah.
You just pat it out and
what I
top
learned
it and go.
So we have Bonsibo here in town. I've always bought their dough balls, and it's dough balls. Theirs are really easy to work with. So like if you've never tried to like stretch out dough, like you poke holes in it, you can do everything wrong. This is very, very forgiving, and it gets a really, really crispy crust. But I bought 10 of them one weekend, and we used like 5 or 6 of them, and I just left them in the fridge. They're wrapped in saran wrap, and I was like, I guess they're still good. So like later on in the week, I got them back out, and they were still good. But after they sit in the fridge for a couple of days, they just got better. It's like you could stretch it more. You could it was easier to work with, and the flavor was almost like a sourdough. Like it come through a lot stronger, and it was really, really good.
So you'd rather them be 4 or 5 days old?
Yeah, but I'm sure they go through so much, they don't have the opportunity to let them age.
Yeah.
But man, I'm telling you, 4 or 5 days on them dough balls from when I picked them up from them was light years better than getting it fresh.
So what size pizza can you cook in that one?
12 or 14, I think.
Which is that's a big pizza.
It's perfect for one person.
Yeah.
I'll put this phone over here. I keep messing with it.
It's no different than going to Pyros or one of those places where you get your own, and you put your toppings on it. So I'm thinking like you got folks over, you just buy a dozen dough balls and let everybody cook their own pizza and have the toppings laid out, and all of a sudden you got one of your favorite things, like pizza bar.
And that was
like, you like taco bars or hot dog bars, you got a pizza bar.
And we done that because like Jody and his wife Rachel and their boys come over. We'll give everybody a dough ball, like make your pizza, I'll cook them, And that was that was a selling point on the Rock Box versus all the other ones I looked at. Is there were several guys that done videos and running them back to back, taking a pizza out, putting another one right in, and cooking them. It done the best. It because your stone temperature is so important of cooking that pizza evenly, and it would maintain, like, you want it to be around 700, 750, and it had no problem maintaining that. And really, like, you almost got to pump the brakes on it sometimes because, like, it'll get hot. Like, it'll get super hot.
What's the time frame?
Yeah, how long does it take to cook one?
60 seconds, maybe.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Maybe.
Oh, yeah. So you can cook 12 pizza
Yeah.
fast.
No time. It's as quick as you can get them in there. You better be ready to start spinning and checking and flipping and raising. And
Does it do you have to manually spin it, or is
you do.
it doesn't turn?
no,
or
it don't
anything?
turn. I looked at some of the ones that turn, but the deal is with that is you want to move that pizza to hot parts of that stone. So when you put the pizza on that stone, it's going to start cooling that portion off. Well, when you're spinning it, you're gradually setting it in a fresh spot every time. So you're keeping it on a hot portion. Well, if you got a stone that you don't have to spin the pizza, it goes in there and sits, it cools the stone off. You're defeating the purpose, in my opinion. You're cooking it great from the top, but the bottom's not cooking as good.
So are you like spinning every 15 seconds or something? So you got to stand there with
Yeah.
it. I mean,
You don't leave it. No, you do not leave it. So you have your pizza peel, and then you have a turning device that's like a smaller version that's kind of round, so you can move it and you spin the pizza with it. And they got
once it's set, like it sets in 15 seconds to where it's
it sets way quicker than that.
yeah.
Like I wait for my crust to puff up. And that's another thing I didn't realize. When you're stretching your dough, you want to start in the middle and push out. And what you're doing is you're pushing those air pockets out to the crust, so your crust does puff up. So as soon as I see the crust puff up and start getting a little color on it, you spin it 90 degrees. Spin it 90 degrees. And once you make full one turn, most of the time it's ready to come out. And it depends on the toppings too. Like
You load it up like ultimate meat lovers.
I mean,
I want 2-3 toppings.
that's me. Like, and plus you eventually you have to build the pizza to match the pizza oven. So like if you put a whole bunch of toppings on there, you're going to burn some stuff before you get everything hot and melty. So really the less toppings, the better.
I think so too, because I want to pick it up. I don't want all my toppings falling off. And
No, it's not like, it's more of a New York style pizza. It's not a Chicago big deep dish, you know. I like them too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Bread, cheese, meat,
Yeah.
sauce.
I'd cook my pizza casserole in the regular
Yeah.
oven for an hour and a half, and then cook my fast pizzas for 60
We'll have to
seconds.
get them up here.
I've been wanting us to get one.
Yeah,
I mean, you got the computer right there in front of you. Buy now.
I got a birthday coming up. It'll be a good birthday present. Yeah.
There we go.
Pizzas and
There we
espressos.
go.
It's a. If I can get me a meat slicer up here, we just do Italian deli. Got pizzas, espressos, and
That's
sliced meats.
that was one of my favorite.
You are
ones.
turning into Sopranos. You just need some sweatpants.
What was their store?
Track
The
suit.
pork store. That's where they hung out at. The pork store.
I'm lost on this conversation.
You don't
never-
watch Sopranos?
I ain't never watched
That's out of you're probably too young.
I mean, I see it on Netflix all the time. I just ain't never
Go back and watch it.
It's worth the watch.
Cellos, something like that's where they hung out at. But without further ado, hey Brad, how's it going? This is Brad Bates from the Butcher Wizard, right?
Yes.
All right, how's it going, Brad?
It's going great. I'm really glad to be here, and man, I've been a fan for a long time, so it's great to finally get to meet you and talk to y'all.
Yeah, well, we're excited, man, because we've kind of started following your channel and we're seeing all these videos you're putting out, and I really like the approach where it's educational but it's entertaining too, and that's kind of our philosophy with YouTube. We try to make something that helps people out, but it's got to be entertaining a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Gotta have some fun with it.
And your channel's been growing a lot. The quality you put into it shows because of how many, people are sharing it, and it's growing super fast. So, how did you get started making YouTube videos?
Yeah, I've always been in the food business. I went to culinary school. I taught culinary school for a while. Worked in restaurants and hotels and all kinds of things, grocery store, everything. And then when I was a stay-at-home dad for a little while, and I wanted to get back to teaching people stuff, so I was like, oh, well, I'll throw it up on YouTube and see what happens. Never expecting anyone to watch it.
Yeah.
And my 8th video that I did, it just blew up. It went to 1 million views in like 4 days. So it was just kind of a rocket ship. And I was like, okay, I got lucky once. We'll keep trying this stuff. And the next couple of videos did really well too. I got those up to over 1 million. So And then it was just off to the races. And I guess I'm now doing this for a living. I don't know.
That's awesome. What was the video that blew up, the first one?
It was how to save money on cutting your own ribeyes. So I basically took a whole ribeye from Costco, and showed people how to make steaks out of it. And again, I still to this day, it gets views every day, and I don't really. I'm not very proud of it, my best video, but I think those early videos are really tough when you go back and look at them, and you're like, oh man. But people liked it, so I'm glad they did.
You know, it's fun to watch the evolution of YouTube. As we went through the same thing. I mean, we didn't know anything about videos when we started, so you just jump in and go. And then when something hits, it's like, man, there's something to this. But I think it's you're authentic when you do it, and it is informative. And so there's a lot of great elements that go into making one of those banger videos. I mean,
the teacher, you can tell you've been a teacher before because you explain stuff so well.
It's like teaching culinary school was one of my favorite jobs I ever had. I mean, and now that I get to do it on YouTube, it's like it's good it's fun because you get to teach people stuff, and like you're saying, you got to be entertaining or no one's will watch it. So it's you just got to try to make it fun.
So what's your process like? Do you sit down with an idea and develop it out, or do you just kind of come up with something and jump in and go?
No, I have a list of ideas going all the time. Of what I think will do well and what I can actually pull off, because I will put everything into like a spreadsheet, every crazy idea I can think of, and some of them just can't be done. I keep it very simple. I'm actually in my kitchen, so it's some things can be done and some things can't. But I mean, I'm always looking at other people and what other people in the cooking space and what other people in different like what gardening people are doing and home improvement channels are doing. So I'll try to get ideas from that and bend it to the meat cutting. So
that's a great approach, though, because all that's information that the average person, if you're like me, if you're into cooking outside, grilling or even just into steaks, you've got something there for everybody to learn from. And that's to put it I think the hardest part is put it in a way to where the average person can understand what you're doing. And I think you do that really good. The teaching side of it comes across that way.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And we sprinkle in some fun stuff. I taste tested all the Bubba burgers, frozen burgers. I've done.
I was going to ask you about it. Yeah.
That was kind of fun. And so, we try to throw in some fun stuff too.
Well, our idea today was just to kind of pick your brain on some of this stuff because you got so many interesting topics. And I do like the way you title your videos. A lot of times you present a question or, what's the best frozen burger at Walmart? I thought that's great. I want to know. It makes me want to watch it. So you're playing the YouTube side of things, right, by coming up with these ideas. But I think the information is really key too. So it's a good job.
So as a meat aficionado,
we like to think of ourselves as meat aficionados.
Absolutely, yeah.
Untrained.
Yeah, we're not culinary school. But so we had some questions for you. So where do you suggest people go buy meat if they don't have a really good butcher shop in their town? Where do you recommend they go to?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to get stuff from Costco and Sam's at the big warehouse clubs. Again, because a lot of the stuff I'm doing, we're cutting down the subprimals. So those are a good place to find them all the time. So I like to get stuff from there. I also not every town has this, but it's called a chef store. It's U.S. Foods. They're a big food distributor. It's there open to the public kind of thing. It's like a restaurant supply and food mixed together. So that place is really great. You can get all these big cuts of meat that they have everything there, but they don't have you can't buy cut ribeyes there. You can just buy the whole subprimals. So those are 3 places that I really like to get stuff.
Do you need a membership for that last one?
Not for the chef store.
Yeah.
You don't need one. I know there's a restaurant depots. I think you need a business license to get into there. But as far as the chef store is concerned, it's open to the public.
We have of course, we have a restaurant depot close to us, but we also have Lit, which is just like you're talking about. It's pretty much a restaurant supply, but it's for the general public too.
It's
and
not
so
a chain.
You can go there and you
Locally
can get
owned,
some primals and subprimals and things like that. But people, I mean, I think a lot of people probably realize, but with videos like yours, it shows you can actually save a lot of money buying those subprimals at the club stores or at a restaurant supply type store and breaking them down yourself. So that's a great tip for people to go out and to learn how to cut their own meat down and save some money from just going to the butcher store.
Easy. If you talk about a strip loin for New York strips or a ribeye, it's really it looks intimidating, but once you get in there, it's not that difficult. Some of the other cuts get a little more intricate, but yeah, I mean it does save a ton of money.
Oh, I love, so I'll go to Sam's or Costco and get the whole beef tenderloin, and you break those down. You get a lot of that stuff. You pay for them to break it down out of the grocery store, but you don't get the chain meat. You don't get the tail and the head of that beef loin, and there's some great meat there that you can do stuff with.
Well, and you kind of touched on the chain on the tenderloin. My favorite part about doing all this at home is the the extra trim that you get from doing all this, and then you grind them up into some of the best ground beef for best hamburgers you've had in your life. So that's I almost like to do that more than I like to eat the steaks. I love a nice good burger. So you can control the fat content, you can control the cuts that go in it. So that's one of my favorite things about what we do.
So when you're picking out these subprimals you're buying, we're talking about the whole piece of meat in the cryovac. Are you looking for something specific when you go to, say, buy a rib loin or anything like that, or a beef tenderloin?
Yeah. How do you pick the best one?
Yeah.
Yeah. For the ribeyes, like for the whole ribeyes, you want one that's as thick as possible, so it has that good diameter to it, because some of them can get kind of flat, and you really want that for that nice round steak. You really want that to be as big as possible. It is kind of difficult to look at outside these packages and see what's going on inside. But again, you're just trying to just use your best judgment. Find one that looks like you hold it up for the cross section, and if it looks like a good steak, I think you're in the right place.
Now, when you're breaking these cuts down, does someone at home, do they need any special tools or anything, or we're just talking a good knife?
Yeah, basically the things you're going to need is a nice sharp knife, a pretty big knife. You don't want something that's like 10 inches, 8 inches, something like that. A boning knife to really kind of get some of the more intricate work done, and then a big cutting board. That's a big thing. The cutting board I use is like 20 by 15, so it's so the whole piece of meat can stay on the one cutting board. And then you got to find a way to store it, so that can be tricky. You can just use plastic bags, like Ziploc bags, or you can go and get a vacuum sealer and stuff like that. But because more than likely we're not eating all these ribeyes at one time, so you're gonna have to find a way to store it. But those are kind of my big things.
Are you cool with vacuum sealing them and just putting them in the freezer and freezing them for 30 days or so? Or do you?
Yeah, I love to vacuum seal, but I love the vacuum sealer for this, and put it in the freezer. I just can't. I know there's a lot of you shouldn't freeze meat, but I don't find that the quality loss is that noticeable. So when you go ahead and thaw it out, so as long as it is vacuum sealed, those vacuum sealers you can put them up. The food inside will last for like a year or something. It's crazy. But yeah, I am fully okay with thawing out the steak and then enjoying it out as you need it.
So, all right, Shelley wrote this down. Did you want to ask that next question I see on our list here about the, okay. What do you look for? Well, it was, what is your favorite cut of steak?
Oh,
I mean, yeah.
What is your favorite?
So, yeah, if you got to pick one, Brad, what are you going to pick?
Right now I'm loving a New York strip. I just love the fact that it's got, it has more flavor than like a beef, like a filet, but it also it's a little leaner than a ribeye. So I'm really enjoying those right now. I love the kind of budget cuts too. So a Denver steak is really good. I'm doing a horrible job of picking just one, but the chuck eye steaks, all these, I really like the budget cuts also. They're a little harder to find, but they're good.
That was what Shell was rolling into next, we talk underrated cuts that people don't know about. I feel like you could share some really good insight on something like everybody knows ribeye, everybody knows strip, everybody knows the fillet, but you touched on a few of the other ones. What's some of the more underrated ones that as a butcher that you would recommend people try?
Yeah, so my favorite budget cuts come from the chuck primal cuts. So you have a chuck eye, which is kind of like a ribeye, and it actually is the ribeye muscle, but it's just smaller in the chuck. So I would say like you get a ribeye, but for chuck prices, just because of where it's at in the cow. And there's only a couple of them on each animal, but they're really, really good. It's just like having a ribeye for half the price. The Denver steak, like I said, is it comes out of that chuck primal too, but it's kind of eats more like a strip. So it's lean, but still has a good amount of fat in it. And the good thing about these cuts is they are they're in the chuck, so they're cheaper, but they're not as tough as other cuts in the chuck. So they eat like a steak. As long as you don't cook them over like medium or so, they are really good steaks.
I'm a huge fan of that the chuck section of steaks because I've been cooking Denver steaks for a while. I've definitely loved the chuck eye. I think bang for your buck, it's as good as a ribeye. And we have a friend that has one of the best butchers I think in the United States down in Florida, Kevin. We want to get him on the podcast soon. But he started sending me some of these chuck eye steaks to try. Some of these cuts that we don't see at grocery stores. That's the thing. Like where we live, I mean, the Memphis area, it's not really beef centric. And we can go find decent steaks, but we're not going to see all of these specialty cuts. And I kind of fell in love with the Denvers, the hanger steaks, the chuck eye steaks, all of the Trace Majors, all these steaks that you get out of that front shoulder primal, I guess.
Yeah, and that's kind of what makes it good about breaking down your own meat is you can get all these steaks out of your own. It's a chuck roll is the subprimal, and with a little bit of practice, you can pull out. You can get your chuck eyes and your Denver steaks because they're, like you're saying, they are very hard to find because most grocery stores just don't take the time to cut those out. They just take the whole chuck roll, and they'll make chuck roasts out of all of it, and then that's it. The Denver steak is kind of lost. The chuck eye is lost.
And I'm guessing you have a video on your channel about how to break down the chuck roll.
Yeah, I got a couple of them, as a matter of fact. So just different angles, and
it is not like you make it sound really easy just talking about it, but it's more complicated than just jumping in there and cutting them out perfect the first time. It's going to take you some practice.
Yes, the chuck roll is more complicated. I would not suggest that people jump right into that. I would start with something like the strips or the ribeyes and get acquainted, but because the chuck roll does have several muscle groups, and a lot of them are real different. Like there's parts of those chuck roasts that you do not want to cook medium rare, and then you find the Denver steak and you're like, oh man, this is really good. So, and they're right next to each other. So it does take a little practice, but I tell people that it's okay if you mess up because you still have dinner afterwards. So nothing really goes to waste.
Still got the meat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's the most overrated cut in your opinion?
Okay, so I love this question. I think the tomahawk ribeye is the most overrated cut as of right now. It looks great for Instagram. It looks great for YouTube, but like it's a ribeye with a long bone on it. You can get a bone-in ribeye and not have to have that extra bone. So it's when I talk about saving money on the channel, it's like you don't get you still have to pay for that bone that you're not going to eat. So I would say that's probably the most overrated in my book.
Yeah.
I see that in restaurants. Like you go to a restaurant and they'll have the big bone-in ribeye. It's probably $50 or something like that, but they'll do a tomahawk. They'll charge you $100 for it, and it's the exact same steak. It just has a longer bone. It's not any different.
But it looks cool.
It looks great on Instagram.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it has that Fred Flintstone look. You pick up that big piece of meat on the big bone, and it looks cool and all that, but you can't eat that.
Well, my problem is like I've talked about how I don't like this cut, and then I'm like, but man, it would look cool if I did a video on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
No, we've done a couple.
Yeah, I've done several of them, and they're absolutely good. They're really, really good, but I don't know if it's worth it.
And it's a showstopper. It's a.
Yeah, it's the cool factor. Well, what temp do you typically try to hit when you're cooking your steaks?
Yeah, I'm rare to medium rare. I'm more on the rare side. But my family, like kids, when we have steaks, they're more the medium, so stuff like that. But I mean, we're just, I can't have it too rare. But
and you may educate me on this, but I've been seeing some commentary on, and I never really thought about it. Like when you take different cuts of steak, say you take a strip steak, I never want to eat it medium. I always want a medium rare, rare plus, somewhere even rare. But say a ribeye, when you go to eat a ribeye rare or medium rare, you don't always get that fat rendering. So I don't think you get as much true flavor out of it because it really hasn't been heated enough to melt some of that fat that's in it. The ribeye is a real fatty steak, which is great about it because it gives it flavor. But so what's some of your thoughts on that about having to take ribeyes a little bit further to get that fat to render some?
Yeah, I completely agree because that is the challenge with a ribeye is it does have all that fat inside. It's just so you may go medium and something like that to render some of that fat, and that's why we all love prime rib because it's taken medium like for a long period of time, and then all that intermuscular fat really renders down. So I mean, I completely agree. It's good. I am not. When I go to a restaurant, I don't usually order the ribeye. I don't usually gravitate towards that. But I mean, the flavor of especially that ribeye cap and all that stuff is tremendous.
It's worth it.
So you mentioned Costco earlier being a great place to source some meat from. Have you tried their spinalis pinwheels that they sell? I mean, I used to see them. I hadn't been to Costco in a minute, but have you ever tried that cut?
I have not seen that. I've seen it online. People talk about it, but at my local Costco, I have not seen that. I did a video where I made that myself, where you took off the whole cap and then rolled it up. So that steak was tremendous. Like it seems like it's almost cheating though if you're taking off the best part of the ribeye. And
can you walk us through that process? So I don't even know if people really realize what it takes to do it, but trimming that. How you would trim that spinalis off and then roll it up
from a whole ribeye? Is what
yeah.
Yeah, it's really pretty easy. You get your whole ribeye, and you can see where that spinalis starts to form as you're cutting it. I usually kind of I tell people to take one thin slice off of the end, and you can tell if you're at the right place where that spinalis is. And you just take your boning knife and you get underneath it, and you just remove that cap off there. It comes off really easily. Like most of butchery too is knowing where the seams are so that you don't have to use your knife so much. So you just lightly start pulling that cap off, and then once it's off, it's a pretty thin piece of meat, and it's not very it's thicker in some parts and thinner in others. So you just kind of put two together, and you roll it up and tie it, and you can cut steaks out of it just like that.
Oh, so you put two together.
Yeah, because like I said, one side's real thick and it goes down to a thinner side. So I kind of it's hard to explain, but I reverse it so that the thin part is over the thick part, and it kind of makes it more uniform.
So it's kind of a fold, pretty much. Is that?
It's like a thick part here and a thick part here, and you lay.
Yeah, and then you roll it up and tie it.
I got you. So pound for pound, that's an expensive cut of meat. You have to have two whole ribeyes to cut the best part of them off to do this.
Well, it's like if you're doing a prime rib, maybe for people you don't like that much, you take off the ribeye cap and save it for later,
So, for me, once I remove that, I might as well be eating a strip because it's the eye of that ribeye pretty much tails off to the strip, the strip loin. So it's kind of.
Yeah. Like I said, it definitely is cheating to go ahead and take the best part of the steak or best part of the ribeye and make a steak out of it. But, it's fun.
I love good roast beef, like from the deli, like a roast beef sandwich from a really good deli. But when you buy it from the grocery store, every time I do, the roast beef is kind of like flavorless and bland and stuff. And I saw you had a video of how to make perfect deli-style roast beef at home. Could you explain that process to us?
Yeah, it's you're basically just taking I forgot what cut I used on that one, but you're going to take something from the round, more than likely, and roast it. And I think the biggest problem with grocery store roast beef is the fact that they cook it too long, and you don't get that nice kind of medium roast beef. And that's what you really gain by doing it yourself. But then, you can do whatever kind of seasonings you want on it. and then roast it to the right temperature, and then put it in the refrigerator overnight so it's super cold. And then it's just taking a meat slicer, and that's how you get those nice thin shavings of roast beef. But I mean, it's really pretty easy. It's just, it's a 2-day process at least, and you got to have the slicer it's a special piece of equipment that you may or may not have. But for me, it's worth it. I love roast beef sandwiches.
When you're roasting it, are you roasting it at high temp or a low temp for a long period of time? What's that process?
Yeah, I'll start it out high and then bring it down low, just so it gets a little caramelization on the outside. I know you're not gonna, you're getting so little of the outside when you're getting a slice of roast beef, especially in the meat slicer. So you can go heavy on the seasonings. You can try to go heavy on the caramelization, but you don't have to either. If you don't want to take the extra time, you can just throw it in the 350-degree oven. And as long as you have some sort of thermometer to take the temperature, that's all that matters.
And what temperature are you trying to hit with that?
I would say, like, if you're trying to go medium, I would go you want to go 10 degrees less. So if you're like 130-ish, 125-ish, it just depends on how you like it. But you can, whatever you're looking for, go 10 degrees below, because you're going to have that carryover cooking with that big piece of meat. It's so that's the tricky part, where you pull it at the right temperature and then it goes 10 degrees up. So that's the biggest thing to keep in mind.
So are you doing anything to change the flavor on the inside of the roast, like injection or brine or?
I've never tried. I've seen on your channel, injecting all the barbecue and stuff like that. I've never tried it. I can only imagine it will help the flavor if you can get some flavor on the inside.
That's my big hang up with a lot of roast beef you get. It's just, like you said it earlier, it doesn't have any flavor at all. Mm-hmm. It's just maybe a little salt if you're lucky. That's all you get.
Yeah.
But it's so bland. And then I've had, venison roast beef that I've, had prepared at a processor, and it'd just be flavored through and through. So I assume they did something like that, an injection or brine or something, to really get some flavor deep down in it.
Yeah,
or maybe they just cooked it right.
Oh, they just cooked it right, yeah. I think overcooking it's a big thing too, though.
Yeah,
because when you overcook it, there's no coming back. I mean, you've dried it out and you've got rid of all that natural beefy flavor of it, and and I don't understand why anybody would want to eat something past medium.
Yeah.
So,
unless it's pot roast.
It doesn't have to go way past.
Yeah, way past.
So I saw a video where you compared all the different brands of bacon at Walmart. And I'm on a personal mission to find like the best brand of bacon, because it varies so much. So what was your favorite when you did that?
I heard, so I did that experiment, and then people kept telling me about Wright's bacon. And I don't know if that's a regional thing or wherever, but they said, you got to try, I can't believe you didn't do Wright's bacon. And I go, they must have been out that day. I don't know. But, I just like to look for the best kind of bacon that you can, the meatier kind. It was a fun experiment, and it just kind of, like I said, it was a lot of fun, and I got to eat a lot of bacon.
You don't get tired of eating bacon. I can get down with that.
But did you have a brand that stuck out to you more than others?
You know what? I cannot recall off the top of my head, but which one won. I know the turkey bacon didn't win. I know that one.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, if you've never tried Wright's, you've got to find you some Wright's bacon, because it is fantastic.
I think it might be a Southern thing, like a regional thing.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
well,
I'm in South Carolina, so it's we got. I'm sure it's there. I guess they just didn't have it, or I didn't pick it up, or I don't know what.
The problem with Wright's is it's really thick, and so it never gets like.
It's not the disintegrate like.
It never gets the really, really crispy. It's got the best flavor, but if you're looking for really, really crispy bacon, it's never.
For thin bacon, I'm a Smithfield man. For thick bacon, I like Wright's, but there's a brand called Nooski's that if you ever get a chance to get some Nooski's, it is worth the hype. It's expensive, but it's really good bacon. I mean, a fat guy's going to know his bacon. We could talk a whole podcast about bacon. What we can wrap.
See, we have I have 4 kids, so we are in the volume game when it comes to a lot of foods. So it's like we're especially when it's bacon. We're a couple pounds for breakfast. We're a couple pounds of bacon for like Sunday breakfast. But.
Yeah, the 12-ounce pack doesn't get it. Does it?
Yeah.
that's not going to get it.
Okay, well then I'm gonna ask you about the rotisserie chicken, Sam's or Costco.
I do love Costco, but Sam's won that competition. They had better flavor. The seasoning was better. The particular one I got from Costco was a little bit underdone, so you had to go back and put it back in the oven. So I just think for that particular day, Sam's definitely won on the rotisserie chicken.
I'm going to blame that on whoever's operating the rotisserie that
Yeah,
day.
that's kind of that's hard to.
I would like to know what Sam's is seasoning. You know, if they have a certain specific seasoning that they're putting on those chickens, because for $5, I don't think you couldn't get a whole chicken and cook it yourself as good as they can do
Yeah.
it. Or at least, I mean, it's so fast, it's so easy, and they're always consistent.
Yeah, those $5 chickens are really interesting. I don't know if you've heard about how many they actually sell, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of these things, and just to get people to come in the store and buy a chicken.
Yeah,
It
that's why they
works.
put them in the way in the back.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then you have to wait on them sometimes, so it really gives you ample time to shop and spend some more money with
Yeah.
them.
Hey, it works.
It does.
I go in there and buy.
Oh,
buy
and they
chicken.
recognize me in the meat section of Sam's because I'm looking at I'm one of those guys that's going to go through the meat counter and just look at everything. I may not buy some of everything, but I'm going to look and see what all they have. I found some good stuff.
My Costco and Sam's, they're always throwing out new, different stuff. So you have your tried and trues, but they'll throw out some all kinds of stuff. Every once in a while you can get a porterhouse, and I did at Sam's. They put two porterhouses together and they charged for a T-bone. Like they call it a T-bone, but you can really look and see okay, they put two together that are two porterhouses. So it's kind of a fun game. I'm the one sifting through all the packages.
Well, so, we asked you earlier about where to source meat. One of my things is I like going to the club stores because they do turn a big volume. So, you're getting fresh meat and they're constantly putting stuff out. And then if their case is empty, often you can ring the bell and the butcher will come out there and you can ask him. And a lot of times they've got the inventory. They just hadn't got around to putting it out. So they'll bust out a case and they'll let you pick through it. Like when I've never had a bad experience where they said, no, wait till I set it out. Most of them will let you pick out what you want.
And they typically have a huge selection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So earlier you had said about saving your trim and making burgers. So where do you get the fat for making your burgers or making sausage or something like that?
Yeah, it'll all just be saved from different projects that I've done. And again, I have the YouTube channel, so I have more probably than the average person. But that's what I'll use most often is just there's a lot of fat trim on a strip, on a ribeye. You can get a pretty good amount of fat trimmings. If you don't have all that, you can go to a butcher shop and ask them for they'll sell you beef trim. I know I went to Whole Foods one time and I was making beef tallow and they sold me I had to call ahead or whatever, but they sent me about 10 pounds of beef fat for beef tallow. So they got it back there.
That's a lot of fat too, 10 pounds.
Yeah. I've always, when I go to a butcher, any kind of store that has a butcher, I try to talk to them. I believe in, asking the guy questions. I mean, if it's a busy time, you're not going to take time out of their day. But the majority of the time, they're happy to educate you when you have questions. And building those relationships with them gets them to hold their fat. Because, like our Kroger, for instance, they can't sell fat anymore. And I don't know if this is just a big chain-wide deal, but they stopped them from being – and I think it goes back to where they don't do a lot of cutting anymore in the store. So they probably don't have as much, trim left over. But they didn't have a way to regulate it and sell it, supposedly, is what I was told. So they can't, and they used to sell it. Being a deer hunter, we were always grinding our venison and making burger, and we were mixing beef fat or pork fat with it. And it is a challenge to find that fat.
Yeah, like you said, I think any places that are actually cutting their own meat, I think that's the best place to go. Now who knows? With big grocery stores, they might be getting already cleaned tenderloin so that they can cut they can still cut steaks to order, but like they don't have any of the trim.
So how hard is it to make your own beef tallow?
It's actually really pretty easy. You just you put all of the. I like to grind it to get some more surface areas. So you put that in a pot. You top it off with the fat, and then you put I'll put water in there, and then start to boil it. And what will happen is the water will eventually evaporate, and it'll leave just the fat. So then you can cool it down, and then there's a little bit of water left. It'll separate, and you got beef tallow.
Do you have to cook that down again and kind of to get it back clean, or are you just using it off that first cook?
You definitely can do that process again for, if you're just going to cook with it, I just do it the one time. But I know people make soap out of it, and I've seen it online where they'll like do it more and more times to get the impurities out. But I mean, it's, for me, I just do it the one time.
About how long does it take to boil the fat?
I guess it just depends on how long or how much you start with, but I would say like 30 minutes ish. I forgot how long it took when I did the video, but like it may be a little bit longer. I don't know. But it is beef tallow is very popular, with a lot of different diets and a lot of different people just using beef tallow. I know barbecue guys, they use a lot of beef tallow. So I mean, it's I like the water method because it gives you it doesn't burn, so you don't when you're evaporating all that water, it's not like getting crispy, it's not burning, you're just getting the fat. So I find that to be that way to be a little bit easier.
Are you worried about the temperature? Are you just trying to keep it like on a low simmer once you get the water kind of boiling?
Yeah, just a low simmer, and then you just got to keep an eye on it to make sure you'll know when that water has evaporated.
With you doing all the butchering and cutting, do you ever get a chance to do beef or bone marrow, like roasted bone marrow? Every time I see it on a menu at a restaurant, I always want to order it.
I'm a big fan of eating bone marrow. I haven't done it myself, like for a video or at my house. I love ossobuco. That's one of my favorite go-tos when I'm out. But yeah, the bone marrow is so good. I can't imagine like when you get into like an appetizer, I couldn't imagine doing it like more than just a couple of bites because it's really, obviously really rich. And
I will tell you one thing I found was excellent is a raw oyster with bone marrow topper. It is.
Oh wow!
Oh man, it is. It's one of the finer things in life. I promise you.
I'm gonna have to try that because I love raw oysters. So
that was like a New Orleans menu item. Yeah.
Oh, it was so good. It's so good.
So, are you cooking anything for Labor Day this weekend?
We'll probably just do burgers and stuff. Like I said, like we have a bunch of kids that are out of school. They just seem like they just got in school, but now they get a day off. But yeah, we'll just kind of keep it. Just keep it simple. That's most of our meals nowadays are quick, easy, like get meals on the table because everybody's doing they're doing plays and piano and football and all kinds of stuff. So it's a crazy time.
Yeah, it gets in the way of cooking all the fun stuff, doesn't it?
Well, it does.
You said that burgers are one of your favorite things. What's your favorite burger?
Let's see. So I'm really into the smash burger nowadays. Doing the smash burger, or even just making that burger sauce, that smash burger sauce, and putting on a regular hamburger. But yeah, I just like I said, keep it simple, cheese and some sauce, and go to town.
So for people that don't know about the Walmart video you did about the best burger at Walmart, tell us how that went.
Yeah, so I did that. So I took all the frozen hamburger. Basically, my idea was what would be something I could buy that people would think butchers wouldn't want to taste. So kind of give that juxtaposition of that. So I thought I'll do frozen hamburgers. So I went and bought all the frozen hamburgers. The Bubba Burger actually won that video, and then I did another video of ranking all the Bubba Burgers, all the flavors of Bubba Burgers. So yeah. The Bubba Burger one.
Bubba Burger is usually the brand that we go for too.
You like them?
Yeah.
My pet peeve with them is the shape of them.
It's supposed to be
Like,
that
why
way.
do they want to make it? Why don't they make it round?
So it looks natural.
Yeah.
I heard that in my comments of that video that it's shaped like the state of Texas. So I don't know.
I believe it. It definitely has, it has points and ridges. And
So we had a question on the community I was going to ask you. What is your favorite way to do rib tips?
I usually when I cut them out as whole spare ribs. And I usually just throw them on right beside the ribs I'm cooking.
So you put the whole tip?
Well, it comes off as kind of like the plate piece.
First of all, what are rib tips?
It's a portion of the spare rib. Usually like the little end, like when you trim out a set of St. Louis spare ribs out of some spare ribs, you have drop and you have the piece where it connects to the breastbone. And it's kind of like I don't know the exact word. I call it the plate or whatever.
Yeah. It's got a lot of
connective tissue, cartilage. There's a bone running down one side of it usually, but it's really a ton of great meat on there if you don't mind fighting a little gristle, a little fat. But that's what
it's
really
not.
it's
It's a gnawing.
It's a gnawing rib. Yeah, it's a gnawing rib. And so you got two choices with them. When you cut them off, you can leave that piece kind of whole, and usually you'll end up with the little rib tip piece that comes off the little tail end where you square the slab of ribs up, but don't throw that away. Cook that. It's great in beans. It's great just to eat. And you'll have the big, long piece of the plate. And what a lot of people will do, they'll either take a heavy butcher knife or a cleaver, and they'll cut it into about, 2 or 3 bone sizes. I don't know. What's that, 3 inches?
Yeah, I'd say so.
3 inches?
3 inches.
Into little rib tips. And you season them up with whatever season you like. Get some smoke on them. Throw them in a pan with some sauce. Let them cook until they're almost falling apart. And there's some fine eat. Or you can cook it whole, but not chop it up, just like you would a slab of ribs. Season it. Get some smoke on it. I like to wrap. I don't always wrap them. Sometimes I just go till they're done. And it's just an unwrapped, no wrap rib.
I like them when you wrap them because I feel like it does. The texture ends up.
There's more fat in them, and the connective tissue needs to break down. So wrapping them or steaming them in a pan, like braising them, breaks that down and makes that meat uber tender. And that's what makes them good. And you can add, if you want to add the butter and the brown sugar, like comp style, you can do that. If not, just throw you a little apple juice, just something to give you a little moisture, maybe a little butter. You don't need a lot of extra fat because they have a lot of fat in them. But you just cook them the same way until they're almost, when you stick a probe in them, it's soft. It's like going in nothing almost. That's where you want them. And they're succulent at that point. But that's all it is. It's not a special cut of rib. It's just it's kind of the drop off a set of St. Louis cut ribs.
A lot of times people might throw it away.
Yeah. I know a lot of the comp guys probably don't cook them if they're cutting them out. That's just because they ain't got time. But man, it's some good eating. Real good eating.
So
my papaw, he wanted that over regular ribs. He'd rather have the rib tips because he thought they were meatier. There's more to it.
There's more.
And there's more flavor in it. Yeah.
So if you like the method you had talked about first, where you smoke them, put them in a pan, and cover them with sauce, and let them just break down. When you pull them out of that sauce, do you ever set that sauce? Put it back on the fire.
Usually with tips, I don't. You could throw them back on there and kind of char grill them a little bit if you wanted that size. The only thing, I probably wouldn't take them as super soft because once you start handling them, if they're soft enough, they want to fall apart. Yeah. And that's how I like to eat a rib tip. I want it to be messy. You get a platter of these things, you sit down, and they're just dripping everywhere.
There's
really
a place in Memphis that was famous for the rib tips.
They did theirs different. It was Tom's, and it had more of a Middle Eastern seasoning on it, and they were dry.
And savory.
Yeah. And they would cook them really, really long or slow and long, and they would be, they'd be a little chewy, but it wasn't, it was a little different. It's more akin to like that rendezvous seasoning style or something. Heavy, a lot of herbs in it, but it's not traditional barbecue by any means.
You find a lot of those places in Memphis where it's.
They have a little bit of their culture flavors in them,
They bring their culture to Memphis barbecue, and it's.
Well,
it's different. It's good.
There's so many barbecue joints. They all have to find a way to set themselves out a little different. So it might be a Turkish flavor in your rib tips. They're still doing pulled pork. They're still doing chicken. They're still doing all the traditional stuff, but they're going to have another something with it. And Rendezvous is kind of like that. Their seasoning's different. It's just not a traditional barbecue. And the way they cook them over charcoal, and they don't wrap them or anything, and it still has the membrane on, but they slice each one for you before they bring it to you. It's different, you know.
I like rendezvous ribs.
They're okay.
They're not my
I mean,
favorite.
not-
but
if I say I'm
they're
going to go,
pretty good.
I want to go eat ribs, I'm not going to go there. But to go, it's unique because the scenery's awesome. The history of it's awesome. The beer's always ice cold. The sausage and cheese is on point, and the ribs are the ribs. But they're not bad. And they got that mustard slaw. I like the mustard slaw too.
Yeah.
I tell you, don't sleep on their ham and cheese sandwich.
You always say that. I've never had their ham and
It
cheese.
is great. It's a good lunchtime thing. I mean, nobody wants to get a ham and cheese sandwich for dinner. But if you go there for lunch, it's worth a try.
I only went there for lunch when we ordered the big thing of barbecue shrimp.
24-hour shrimp.
Yeah.
Would you do that again?
Maybe. They
It's
were a little
okay.
overcooked.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's worth the hype.
Everything tasted good to me. And I remember the beer was ice cold. I definitely
Yeah, the beer is really good. So Kevin has joined us, and for y'all that don't know, and I don't know who Kevin Green is, but y'all hear us talk about it on our podcast all the time. He owns the butcher shop in Pensacola, Florida. And that's how I always say it, the butcher shop in Pensacola, Florida. But Kevin, we want to welcome you, man. It's good to see you, my friend. How have you been?
Man, I've been great. It's good to see you guys, and it's truly an honor to be on here. I tell you, it's a highlight of my business career is having you guys as friends and customers, and I'm just excited.
Well, man, I just want to say congratulations, and you do a great job, because I know so many people that are ordering comp briskets and other stuff from you, and you've taken the art of owning a butcher shop to a whole nother level. But what we wanted to get into first, Kevin, was just get a little bit of your backstory. How did you come to own the butcher shop? And you know, what's your background, man?
Sure. So my background is really in procurement. I had worked at a grocery store when I was young for a little while. Took about 4 years off between high school and college, and thought that I was going to go that traditional route of retail management. And, after a couple of years, realized that I might want to go ahead and get an education. So I quit and went back to college. And out of college, I majored in finance. And out of college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, because working in a bank didn't seem like a lot of fun. And I took an interview with a regional chain that I had worked for as a buyer, Bruno's in Birmingham, and was offered the job. And so I did that for 5 or 6 years. And then I moved to New England and was a senior buyer for a large wholesaler. And so I'd always been in the grocery business, but never on the meat side. And had worked for a couple brothers here locally in Pensacola, or outside of Pensacola. And really just got to the point in my life where I thought I wanted to be in business for myself, thought I had enough experience working for other people, and had looked at different opportunities, restaurants, this and that. And there was a meat market in Pensacola that was for sale. And somehow I convinced my wife that would be a good idea for us to buy. And I had never cut meat. I had never worked in the meat department. I didn't know the first thing about it. And the intent was never for me to be in the back of the house. I was just going to run the business. And as we were driving to the closing on this business, the guy that I had handpicked to be my back of the house guy had a family emergency and had to move back to Georgia. So we signed on the dotted line, and I opened this meat market with no employees and no experience.
Man, so how did you learn? That's one question. Because knowing how to cut all this meat,
yeah,
that takes skill.
It does. I mean, I learned, I hired a couple guys with experience, and, I kind of just learned from them. And then on my own, fortunately I had a son that was, 13, 14 that had a little interest. And, as he got a little older, we kind of did it together. But, I will say on the front end that, 30 years ago, it would have been impossible breaking down whole carcasses, but now we're cutting everything in house and grinding everything in house. But, it's a little easier with things, coming in subprimal, but it was the learning curve was pretty big. I mean, the hardest thing initially was just, how do I write an order? How do I get the right product mix in the store? So it really was starting from ground zero to where we are today.
So you had a local customer base already. I'm guessing this meat market was already in business probably, for several years.
Sure.
When you took it over, did you change the name, or was it
We
already?
did. We changed the name pretty much initially. Nothing against the guy I bought it from. He did, he had a good business, but I really wanted to take the business in a little bit different direction. And I had views on it that, were kind of different. I felt there was a need for a change back in time to, when people talk about what they're going to have for dinner, they talk about the protein. They're having steak or they're having pork chops, and invariably they're going to have side items with it. But what they're having for dinner is that protein. So I really wanted to scale back the business and increase the inventory variety of the protein section. And that's kind of changing the name lend itself to that.
So when we, kind of met each other or whatever, it was through the competition barbecue side of things. I know back then when you started, it probably competition barbecue probably wasn't even in your wheelhouse or even knew much about it.
It was
a specialty field, it's kind of niche, but you were more serving that local customer that's cooking in their backyard, that's wanting to come in Thursday or Friday, buy stuff that they're going to cook all weekend long. Is that kind of how the business started?
Absolutely. It was 100% just local retail. I had a protein guy that come in the store one day and asked me about selling Wagyu. And I thought that, long term, I could make that stretch. We put some in. It was, 3-score Australian Wagyu, bottom of the barrel in terms of marble score. And, we threw a lot of it away the first year. Took a while to get it established, but through that, just having some ribeyes and strips, we had a local guy out of Navarre that was competing 3-4 times a year. He asked me about briskets. I got a couple boxes. And then after him, he was in the military. After he moved away, we had a guy in Tallahassee. He was our only competition guy for probably 2.5 years. Travis Millender. We shipped him briskets 5 or 6 times a year for 2-3 years. And he was our only competition guy initially. And it just kind of grew from there.
So was shipping even in the wheelhouse then, or was
it wasn't?
You started.
Yeah, we actually shipped through a third party. There was a local company that was shipping turduckens all throughout the country, and they shipped for us. But yeah, shipping competition meats was never on my radar. We just kind of happened into it. And then once we got into it, my son and I said, man, if we're going to do this, we need to really do it. So we just started getting more and more inventory, more and more of the A9 inventory, to the point where, we were exclusive importer of it.
So it was primarily briskets at the start, but shipping? Are you doing a lot of the other competition meats now, like your pork, your chicken?
Yeah, we do some. Honestly, for us, I think our niche is that brisket. We ship a decent amount of pork butts and ribs, but our primary focus, not trying to be all things to all people, it is the brisket. We're still heavily invested in the barbecue community for sure. As a lot of us get into this selling products and the competition market is very, very good, but that secondary end user guy in the backyard is really, I don't want to say the holy grail, because every customer is important and every customer is good, but that's really the bread and butter. So we ship a good bit of pork butts and ribs and collars, but brisket is our primary focus for sure.
Well, that's one thing that impressed me the most. It's not just that you're getting some of the best meat that you can actually get. It's the customer service. There's never been a time where I've ordered something from you, or you've sent something to us, and there's always a message on the cooler box. There's always, and something that goes out of the way. If there's ever been a problem, y'all fixed it fast. And thankfully, like, I don't even know if I've had an issue with shipping, and that's rare because I know you see them all the time. Shipping is a huge challenge. I mean, for us, even shipping dry products, we face shipping.
It is. I tell people shipping refrigerated, expensive meat is not for the faint of heart. Shipping out of Pensacola, Florida is challenging at its best because outside of Tallahassee, everything in the state of Florida is a 2-day ship for us. So we're 90% 2-day ship, 3-day ship. And it's challenging. I mean, we had a few issues last week. We were just trying to get a box from Florida to California to Chris Webb. And every day, fortunately, it got there a day late, it's still cold, but it was 3 days just trying to get that box to the airport in Orlando to go to California. And until about 3:00 Friday morning, I didn't know if it was going to happen. So yeah, it's challenging and not for the faint of heart for sure.
I wanted to ask you how many briskets you shipped to the Royal. And I'm in costume, by the way.
I see that. I like that. Probably 70 if I had to guess.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot of brisket.
Yeah. It's a huge contest. I mean, obviously, as you guys know, but when we get our shipment in, we're probably shipping those first 2 weeks of the inbound load. We're probably shipping, 100 briskets out those first 2 weeks, 80 to 100, on a consistent basis.
Yeah. So and that's happening year round. That's not just.
It is, fortunately the Florida guys are cooking, almost year round. A lot of the guys throughout the country have learned that, hey, when, you get into November, December, January, demand is down. So there's a lot more inventory. The end of the day, there's only a certain amount of best briskets. And everybody wants the best brisket. They want the thickest, they want the widest. And, with less demand from the competition world in November, December, January, those best briskets become more in number. So it has turned into a year round, business for sure.
Well, do you notice, different briskets, the quality of them's better at a certain time of the year, or are you seeing pretty much a standard year round with these Wagyu briskets?
They're pretty consistent. There are some times that they have some anomalies. They're on a different winter and summer cycle than we are. So when the domestic stuff is, they obviously a cattle that's bigger, is going to be better, more marbled, so the winter months are better. But for it to grade out as a 9+ and for these to be a pure breed Australian Wagyu, they should have that marble score, and they're going to be heavy. So, I tell people a prime strip loin that averages 14, 15 pounds, a pure breed 9 or 10 score Wagyu strip loin is going to be 23 pounds. And they have to be bigger to have that marble score. So there's not as much fluctuation in the A9 brisket seasonality than there is the domestic.
Because I know when we were buying just regular, not even prime grade, just choice grade briskets, there's a clear, I want those winter cows. That's the one
right, absolutely
the weight, and that's the better brisket. And you get to those summer months, you're into that leaner meat, and it's but it doesn't compare to the Wagyu. I'm not gonna lie, there's no comparison.
So could you explain exactly what Wagyu is?
So it's a breed of cattle originated in Japan. And over time, other countries and producers realized that, hey, there's a market for this. So they started taking some of that cattle and domesticating it to Australia, to the United States. So it is a breed of cattle that started in Japan and has evolved to where it is now with, some crossbreed domestic, some crossbreed Australian, some purebred Australian. I guess there is some purebred domestic on a small scale. So it's just that breed of Japanese cattle. And then, the evolution has been the balance between breed, genetics, feed. In Japan, it's all feed driven. That A5 it has the genetic, but the real differential is the feed. And that's where you get that increased cost. Where Australia is more genetic based, and they still feed like Japan, but not at the same level. So you get a slightly less marbled product and a greatly reduced price product relative to Japan.
And what's the difference between y'all always talk about A5, A9? Like, what's the difference between an A5 and an A9?
So Japan grades 1 to 5. 5 being an A5 Japanese is the highest grade there is. There's nothing higher. And that is a grading scale of 1 to 5. Australia grades the marble score typically 1 to 9. Now they'll table sort and table grade ribeye and strip beyond that. But typically Australia is a marble score of 1 to 9, where the Japanese is a grade of 1 to 5. So an A5 from Japan is higher than anything. And then from Australia, a 9+ is going to be the top score there.
Okay.
And those are the ones you're bringing in.
Those are the ones we're bringing in. And I would say,
I thought the A stood for Australia for a long time. I'm not going to lie.
right. And I would tell you that on an average A9 steak, it's probably going to be 80 on a real good one off the short end with all the marbling. It's probably going to be 85% the richness and quality of the A5, and it's probably going to sell for about a third.
So that's a big difference.
It is. And as you guys know, it's pretty rich. So on a Japanese A5, you may eat 2-3 ounces at best. On a 9-score Australian that's really rich, you might eat 6 or 8.
Yeah.
You're probably not going to go beyond 16. That. No.
You can't. I've tried. I paid that price.
Yeah.
And yes, you can do it at the time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You don't get a lot of sleep that night.
No, but you will get a little bit of discomfort. I promise you. And sometimes it's worth that discomfort. Sometimes it's worth it. I don't know what my heart thinks.
Right.
Well, so we're seeing a lot of this Wagyu pop up now, even in just regular grocery stores. I think even our Walmart has a line of
Yep.
it. So I wanted to ask you, so what we're seeing there, is this just a marketing thing that these companies are getting by with to use so it's not really, really Wagyu beef. It might not even be the same genetics. I just wonder if they're doing that to sell more meat at an expensive price, or are they getting something that is, a really, really higher end product?
It all just depends. I mean, I would say that if they have Wagyu on it, that it has some Wagyu in it. That now the challenge is what percentage of that ribeye at Walmart that has that marketplace Wagyu, what percentage of Wagyu is it? Is it 50? Is it 10? Is it 8? Greater Omaha, which is a very good domestic supplier we buy most of the prime we buy for Christmas is always theirs. They just rolled out a domestic Wagyu program, and I've looked at it. I don't really have a lot of interest in it. We've got our wagon hitched to the Australian, but it looks pretty good. So I think that it does have some Wagyu in it, but it's kind of like some of that Wagyu burger. It's got 10% of some Wagyu trim, and the other 90% is God only knows what. The proof's in when you eat it. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of oversight domestically on, this is Wagyu, but what level of Wagyu is it? What grade?
That was
my
next question.
Yeah.
Is there
and it's really not graded. Yeah.
There's no regulation for them to use that. Like, say if they were trying to get by with prime or call it upper prime.
Exactly.
Or, different levels. And maybe we could get you to explain that a little bit, because I know in the butcher shop, you don't just carry Wagyu. You've got some choice grade meat. You bring prime grade meat. So you've got all the different levels. Can you go into that a little bit? Just explain to people what they're looking at and what from a cost point. That's really, I think, what our listeners are more interested in. Why does one cost more than the other? Or what's your best value?
So it really does come down to supply and demand. It always does. We carry what's called an upper 2/3 choice. It's a certified CAB or a Chef's Exclusive or a Sterling Silver. These are all upper 2/3 choice programs based on individual packers. CAB is probably the most commonly known term that people know. And that's, so there's going to be a no roll, which is at the bottom. It's inspected, but it's not graded. And then there's going to be select, and then there's choice. And then from choice, you get upper 2/3 choice. There's some 1/3 choice. And then you get to prime. And within prime, it could be on the high side or the low side. I mean, it's graded based on a picture of the loin on the hoof, and they make a determination, and hopefully it's really accurate. So for us, we probably sell more prime than we do upper 2/3 choice. And I think that's just a makeup of our customer. But most chains, you have one option or two. They carry choice, or they carry select, or they carry prime. I would tell you that if you can afford it, there's a pretty noticeable difference in choice or upper 2/3 choice and select. So if you can afford it, I would start at choice. And for us, having choice, prime, Wagyu, a lot of times we'll have 2 or 3 marble score options in Australia, and then Japanese. We've got customers that buy all of them throughout the year. They have that, maybe they're having a cookout and they're having some friends over, and maybe they're serving choice ribeyes. And then the wife's out of town with the daughter, and the son's home, and the dad and the son are having prime. And then it's, Valentine's Day, and they don't want to fight the crowd, so they buy a couple Wagyu steaks. Same customer might buy every grade we sell throughout the year, but they're not always buying the same one. It's kind of, I don't want to say price driven. It's more event driven, what they're having and who's going to be there.
Yeah, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
So if you had a customer come into the shop and they'd never tried Wagyu before, what cut would you recommend they start with?
It depends on what they're looking for, but if price is not an issue, I either have them try the Denver steak or the filet. I'm not a filet guy. And I tell people, if all you want's tender, buy choice filet, because they're all tender. And they don't really get better until you get to Wagyu in terms of flavor. Prime's a little more flavorful, but it's not noticeably more tender. So the Wagyu filet is a oh wow moment, because it has such a rich flavor that if you've never tried Wagyu, you've never had a filet that had anywhere close to that flavor. And then the Denver is just
from the marbling in that tenderloin.
It comes from the marbling, and then from the breed. All Wagyu, all this Australian Wagyu is going to have some richness. And as you go up the scale, it gets richer and richer in terms of flavor. But the best prime filet will not have anywhere near the flavor of an average Australian Wagyu filet.
Are you comparable in price at the market?
So
Like to that prime versus, how much are we talking? Double the price?
No, we're talking. So for us, from choice to prime is probably about an $8 upgrade. And from prime to Wagyu is probably about an $8 upgrade.
Okay.
So to me, it's the same jump. And I don't know that I'm jumping from choice filet to prime, but I would jump from prime to Wagyu. Because I don't, yeah.
And if you want to do something nice, that's not
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not going to eat Wagyu filet every night.
Yeah,
exactly. and then the other one I try to recommend is a pretty nice score strip, because to me, the flavor difference in the Wagyu filet is unlike anything, and the texture difference for me from prime strip to a 6-7 or an 8-9 Wagyu strip is exponential. I don't like New York strip. It just doesn't have the texture I'm looking for. The best prime strip I've ever had, I didn't enjoy, but an average Wagyu strip I've really liked.
And that's where it shines for me, is on the lesser cuts that are typically leaner or a little on the tougher side, because it's more of a working muscle or something. When you get into the Wagyu, those that's where I want to spend my money. And that's why I think the brisket's so good. You know, brisket
Sure.
normally one of the
Yeah.
toughest cuts on that cow. You can't, there's no way to cook it except cook it down low and slow. So
And
go ahead, Kevin.
and then if we so that's kind of if money's not an issue, but if we have people that are a little gun shy because of the money, then I turn them on to either a top sirloin or a sirloin filet, because now they're in the $20 and below. You know, right now a good choice ribeye about that price. So,
Yeah.
you know, a sirloin filet in a 6 or 7 or an 8, 9 Wagyu is going to eat like a choice filet in terms of texture, but it's going to have flavor. So they're actually going to save money on a better product.
That's good to know because you can step down and buy that.
Sure.
turtle
Yeah.
lumber. Well, like if I
Stay
say
in your same price point and get a better cut.
get a
yeah.
better cut. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I don't think I've ever had Wagyu sirloin.
I'm going to write that down.
One of my favorites, when you touched on the Denver steak, you turned me on to those. And I was like, man, this is unbelievable. This is like eating the best choice ribeye that I've ever ate. And this is coming off the shoulder. It's not,
Sure.
you know. So I agree. I think those lesser cuts, when you get to the Wagyu, that's where they shine and that's where you get your value. You take those flat irons.
Sure.
Wagyu flat iron is one of the best eating pieces of Wagyu I think I've ate. And the ribeye, I can't hardly eat it. I don't want to spend that money. Even like say the Japanese stuff, we've had some of it, and it is so rich and
It is.
marbled in the ribeye section. It's overkill, man. So you're eating butter steak, or you know.
So I love ribeyes. What grade would you recommend going with a ribeye? Prime?
Prime. I would.
Yeah.
In my opinion, a short end or a chuck end prime ribeye for the money is hard to beat. Is the Wagyu going to be better? Yeah, but I think you do get some diminishing return on that item, because a prime ribeye cooked right is phenomenal.
Oh yeah, one of
And it's, you know, it's going to be half the price.
One of the finer things in
Yeah.
life.
Yep.
No, I agree. We've put them side by side. You know, we'll have some people over and do a little steak. You know, you want to serve everybody a little bit of
Sure.
everything, and put them up there. Everybody always goes in the ribeye to that prime ribeye versus any of the others.
Sure.
It's that good. And you can find those typically. I mean, our local grocery store, we've got a small butcher shop in town now. They've got that grade of meat. They may not have the Wagyu, but they've definitely got that. Where do you stand on the aging? Is dry aging worth the money? Are you selling any dry aged products, or is it all aged?
We are selling some dry aged, typically ribeye and strip. Me personally, I'm not a dry aged beef fan. I just don't like the flavor of it. But I don't eat wild game, so I'm real traditional palate. But people that like dry age, man, they love it. It's almost a cult following. They're looking for that flavor profile. So we sell a decent amount of it. We have it really, and it's probably me holding it back from a personal preference, but we sell it, we offer it. You know, I like the dry aged pork chops a lot better than I like the dry aged beef. But it is popular, and you know, it's going to shake out, you know, a choice, an upper 2/3 choice dry age is going to shake out about like a prime, and a prime dry age is going to shake out in between prime and Wagyu, but probably closer to prime price wise.
Well, I mean, my thinking is with it, when you get up into the prime, the upper prime, and the Wagyu, and you try to dry age it, it's got such a high fat content. It's really, really, really going to intensify that dry age flavor. And I don't have the palate for it.
Yeah, I don't.
And you like wild game,
and I love wild game, but it just takes on a level of funkiness that I'm not crazy about, you know. And it's just, and some people like it.
But he's right. The people that love it love it. Yeah.
We sent Greg Rempe, I think, some 80-day, 85-day dry age.
Yeah.
And he really enjoyed it, man. I tell you what, I wouldn't give you a nickel for it.
Is that something you did in house that long? Or
because we would have to have our own dry aging room, and I just didn't think that the cost bore out. I knew I wasn't going to go full bore for that dry age, so we're just buying it from, you know, we can select how many days we want it aged when it comes into us.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just something we bought from the supplier. ships it up to
So
them.
let's talk the opposite of that. Let's go wet aging, because I am a fan of that.
Oh, absolutely.
When I know the pack date on a brisket and I can let it sit in my fridge for 30 days, it totally changes it. And
Sure.
I've even went as far as 45. Now, I'm not a 60-day guy, but the 30-day is what I like to see on stuff. So what's your thoughts on the wet aging process?
I mean, typically for us, in the high choice and prime market, they're usually not shipping it out to us within 30 days. They call it green meat. It just hasn't set up. It hasn't wet aged. So, we typically wouldn't get ribeyes in that don't have 30 days aged to them. And I would tell you that most choice and prime, subprimals in coolers throughout the United States are 45 to 60 days on a boneless product. Whether it's us or whether it's Publix or whether it's HEB, that product's just not getting into the pipeline until they put some wet age on it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The key is the cryovac has to be good and tight, and the temperature controls have to be very good.
Do you think that there's different rules to cooking the turkey breast than there is a whole turkey?
I don't know about different rules, but it's
Different method, different procedure.
same technique. It just cooks a little faster.
But you cook this one lower.
Well, because I'm not trying to get the skin just right. So you can slow it down a little bit. It would cook. It would still cook at 350, I think. But like my Smoking on the Outlaw, it likes to run at 275, and it's the perfect temp for cooking breasts like that. They come out perfect. So that's why I do them at that.
Okay.
That's like trial and error where I figured out where I like to cook them. If I was cooking it on drum, I'd still be cooking at 275. If I was cooking on pellet grill, I'd probably put it on 250.
Oh, really?
Yep. Just because I know I'm moving a lot of air.
So there are different rules.
Yeah, but it ain't really a different rule. I never thought about turkey rules. What's rule number 1 in the turkey?
Brine it. I guess
Is it?
remove the
Okay.
giblets. I don't know.
Slow thaw it in the refrigerator would be my
Slow
rule.
thaw it in
number
the
1.
refrigerator.
And then rule number 2 would be get in a brine. I got this turkey breast in a brine. So I did. It's simple. It's like half a bottle of bird brine and 1 gallon of water will cover 2 breasts. And if I was using 2 gallons, I would use the whole bottle. Per 1 gallon, I usually think half a bottle is a good solution. And then mix that up in like a Kool-Aid pitcher or tea pitcher. Put the breast down in a meat bag, drop it in the briner bucket, pour the brine over it, make sure it stays weighted down with the little disc thing, plastic that goes in there, and then stick it in the refrigerator.
How long do
And,
you brine the breasts?
I would say 12 hours would be ample. There's no use in going any more, but you could probably 4 hours would be minimal. I just stick it in there and let it go overnight. That's what we did. I don't know if you can tell the video, but it's like we just got a clip of me putting that in there real quick, stick it in their fridge, and the next day is when I get it out and we're shooting the whole video with it. So the day I'm taking it out, I just let it drain really good, and I put it out on paper towels and just try to get all the moisture off of it I can. Sometimes there's some herbs and peppercorns and stuff, and you can sit there and pick that stuff off if you want to. I don't think it hurts, so I don't take too much care making sure I got every little thing that was in that brine, the herbs and stuff, trying to get it off the turkey breast. I don't think it makes that big a difference if some of that's on there still. So give you a little flavor, make a little crust.
So aside from pulling the skin off, do you do any other trimming?
The only trimming I do, sometimes there's some extra sinew on it, and you want to take that off just because that's kind of a barrier. And if there's any things hanging, I try to make it to where air is going to flow even. Just think about how you cook a brisket, and you don't want to make any sharp edges. You want the airflow to be able to hit the meat and just kind of flow over it, not be stopped by anything. So I just try to make it aerodynamic.
And remove any barriers?
Yeah, remove any barriers that's on the outside. If there's some fat hanging off, trim that off. If it doesn't, sometimes you got to think these things have been cut off the carcass. So there's going to be a little jaggedy on the bottom side. Sometimes I'll take my knife and just kind of smooth that out a little to where it'll lay flat really easy. But I just want it to look good because, if it looks good when it goes in, it's going to help it look good when it comes off. And that's the only reason for doing it. I have been in a pinch, took them out of the package, seasoned them up, put them on, not even browned them, not injected them, not do anything. And
they're pretty good that way.
They're good that way too. But the brine really, really helps. It helps you get some flavor down in that meat. And you could inject these too. If you want to make up an injection or buy like one of the, what is it, the Cajun Creole butter injections. I
You've
love
done
to use
that
those.
before. You didn't have time to
Mhm.
brine it. You grabbed it, injected
That's usually
it.
when I do inject, when I don't have time for the full brine. But on a whole bird, man, I'll brine it and inject it. Why not? Make it really good.
So for seasoning,
Here's all I did. I like to hit it with the fat on the outside, so I use a cooking spray. You could, whatever you like, if you want to put oil on it, whatever. You want something that's going to just help it stick, and it does kind of help that outer surface. It gives it a little reason to brown, having that fat on there. And I seasoned it with some King Crawl, just some Cajun seasoning, and then I like a little texture on it, so I come back over it with some coarse ground TX rub to give it that salt and pepper kind of outer crust. So it's kind of a play on a Texas style turkey breast with more of a little Cajun flavor. And then at that point, it's just super easy. Throw it on the pit. I'm running 275. I've had hickory splits. You could use whatever wood you want on turkey. It's really, really good with just about any kind of wood. Even mesquite works
you've
great
done
with
a
turkey.
mesquite smoked turkey.
Yeah,
It was pretty good.
So you could use whatever flavor you want to do. Pecan's a good choice. Hickory's a good choice, of course. Any kind of fruit wood, even mesquite. So that gives you a lot of options on wood, or pellets. If you're doing pellets, you could use just about any pellet too. So once it's on the pit and running 275, I just kind of watch it for the first hour. And what's going to happen is first it's going to start drying out, which you want, and then the seasoning's going to kind of adhere to it. And it's going to start browning a little bit. And when it does all that, usually in about an hour, it's ready to wrap up because you want to get it cooked through and through to where it's really tender and really juicy. And wrapping it is going to help that.
Would you say it's kind of like, how when ribs, you'll know it's time to wrap a rib when you
touch it and the seasoning doesn't rub off, you can absolutely do that little trick there. Rub the outer surface just kind of on the side. If that seasoning feels like it's adhered to it, it's kind of starting to make that bark, that's what you want. And at that point, we just want to get it done and keep as much moisture inside it because the whole time this turkey's been cut off the bone, it's wanting to push its moisture out to get done. You're losing a lot of it. And so my thinking is if I get it wrapped up in foil, I can add some extra moisture to it. I can add some more flavor, and it's going to help hold all that in, and I'm not just losing it in my pit. So if I need some au jus at the end to put back over the slices when I get it carved up, I've got it. And it's usually really, really good.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do.
Well, you put a stick of butter in there. It's
That's
be
exactly right. That's what makes it so good. So the only thing going in my wrap extra is one stick of butter, and I take that butter and I cut it in half long ways and lay it on the foil. And I'm doing a double layer of aluminum foil to make sure everything stays inside. I lay the turkey breast down and I pour about half a cup. I just kind of eyeball it, but you don't need much more than half a cup of liquid in there with it because you've got that. What's a whole stick of butter? Is it a half a cup when it's melted?
Yeah.
So you've got that. And then if you add a half a cup of chicken broth, you've got some buttery, chickeny goodness going on, a whole cup of it, plus whatever juice is coming out. That's making a pretty good bit. And at that point, I go ahead and put my meat probe in so I don't have to go through the full. And I want to just go in the thickest part of that breast and run it out. And it usually has a wire on it. So then I wrap it up tight. That way I don't have to open that foil anymore to check and see if it's done. I don't have to puncture it. It's good to go. Then they go back on the pit. And I plug my little probes up to my ThermoWorks dots, and I just let it rip until it gets to 160. It's easy. That's the only temp I'm worried about. And the reason why I take it to 160 is because I want to stop it a little bit shy of what's done because I know there's going to be carryover. Just like with any meat, these turkey breasts are going to carry over too. And they're big enough to where they're holding a lot of heat, especially in that full, that they're going to go about 7 degrees or 5 to 7 degrees over where you take them off, and they're going to be perfect. And so that's how I figured it out.
That would mess it up. That would be the one way you could mess those turkey breasts.
Dry them out. Exactly.
Take them up.
Now, brining them is going to give you a little leeway. They're really holding on to moisture there. And then wrapping them in the aluminum foil with the butter and chicken broth is going to make them moist too. So you're kind of, if you do screw up and you overcook these things, they're still going to be pretty daggum good. Now, I've always taken them off in that 160 range just because I want it to be as moist, and I want those slices when I cut it just to be oozing with moisture and flavor. And that's what they are. They're so good. I hope you could tell in the video how juicy that turkey was because it was phenomenal.
So because one of them's bigger and one of them's smaller, they typically cook,
Yeah, it's going to cook. The small one's going to cook faster.
One thing I've noticed about these turkey breasts is they are a lot easier to hold than a whole turkey, than a regular turkey.
Yeah. Well, they don't take up as much space for one. But like
You
that
don't have
one,
to worry about skin getting
messing up the skin.
soggy,
Yeah, it's all
or-
edible. Everything's edible on it.
You could
Yeah.
throw it in a cooler and just like a brisket, take it with you.
I would say that big turkey breast would probably, just one side of it, the big side, would have been enough to feed 8 people, no problem.
Yeah.
Maybe 10.
Yeah.
A good sized portion of turkey. You all would have probably gotten at least 8 ounces of turkey. And that's a lot of turkey.
And you got the other one for
Sandwiches.
leftovers.
Yeah. That's why I like cooking both of them. Go ahead and cook both of them because you might get into it, but it also, like, there's usually, if you cook one of them and you got some people that are ready to eat Thanksgiving, it's going to be pretty fast because everybody's going to want to go back and they're going to want to make a plate with that.
Yeah.
So it's just added insurance.
Well, at Thanksgiving, you typically got a plate's worth. You got a couple casseroles, a salad or two.
You got all the good
the
stuff,
rolls,
all the good stuff. Then you got to save room from
dressing,
desserts.
gravy, huh?
Well, turkey's usually not the highlight at Thanksgiving.
Not-
It's everything else. But for me, when you cook this turkey, man, just give me that and some dressing and I'm happy.
Are you doing a ham and a turkey this year?
Absolutely. And I'm probably going to do a whole bird, a turkey breast, and then a ham.
At least one ham.
At least one ham. That's just for our family that I'm taking over to my mom and dad's.